All right, guys, welcome back to the Seek One podcast, the podcast that is most likely to get us canceled.
Oh, man.
We have a very special guest on this episode. Round of applause.
Oh, wow.
No, you. We're talking about you, right?
No, you,
Oh,
Bill.
oh.
You're the star of the show. We have Bill, who you've seen in some of our videos, specifically the North Dakota video when we introduced you
Hey, guys.
to our channel. Bill is a military vet, 21 years, right?
Yes, sir.
Created the app Spartan Forge, which is an amazing app. If you guys don't have it, you need to try it.
Go ahead and plug the code.
Yeah, you can use our code to try it out for free. Seek One.
Yes.
Seek One.
But they need to go to the website.
Yeah.
SpartanForge.ai.
Yeah, it's a good point.
And we'll dig into that later. But we are in Drew's backyard right now. We're sitting around a campfire. Great
Beautiful.
ambiance.
Urban hunt camp.
This is Urban Hunt Camp.
I hope they can hear the crackling of the fire because this is great.
It's pretty awesome. I'm wrapped up in a blanket. I'm half drunk. I'm going to go ahead and throw this out. This is probably going to be some explicit content. If you're 18 years or older, you probably want to turn this one off.
Younger.
Yeah,
18 years or younger.
Or older.
Yeah, so that gives you a pretty good clue what shape I'm in.
Yeah.
This is around the campfire talk. So
Yeah, I said it earlier, and maybe it's worth mentioning again. We might only get about 15% of deer talk.
yeah, that was my next point.
Okay, good.
This podcast is going to go in a million different directions. This is probably going to be a long podcast, and I have no idea where this is going to go. It might be 10% deer hunting. It might be 90%, just like I have no idea what's going to be talked about. But what I do know is that I'm the dumbest person on this podcast right now.
Oh, shut up.
That's
Here-
flattering.
here's
100%.
well-
you guys say so many words that I have no idea what they mean.
So, last night, Bill came in town yesterday, right? Or was it 2 days ago?
2 days ago.
2 days ago. Okay.
Yeah.
We went out to dinner, and we're talking about all this stuff, and Lee is over in the corner, like on his phone, just like not saying a dang
I'm so
word.
pissed.
Not saying a
Fuming.
word.
I was
And-
not going to bring it up until now. I was so pissed. I don't remember the last time I've been that pissed.
I could see it.
so mad.
Bill is just laying down just like words of wisdom and just like we're
Oh,
bouncing
goodness. No, I wasn't doing that.
from topic to topic, and Lee's just like totally
Podcast
disengaged.
Gold.
At some point, you're like, guys, will y'all just
I cursed
hell
you
up?
out. No, I didn't say. I cursed you guys out bad. I was
Yeah.
like, Bill, this will be the only time I say this to you. But
Shut
you know
the
what
F up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was so mad because I was like, guys, this is podcast gold.
But
and
then
you
it
guys are
happened again.
Burning it.
It happened again earlier, and he immediately switched to his phone, just started
I saw-
looking at his
but
phone.
I
yeah.
disconnected. I just like
Was that why though?
yes, because I'm like, if
But we're
y'all-
not going to talk about. We're not going to get deep into that stuff.
No.
So okay, we just had some delicious backstrap first of
Oh,
all
man, that was
Yeah.
amazing.
Of
From-
the buck that Drew just killed.
that I killed 2 days
And
ago.
so
I think.
what was it the grill you used? I mean, it was so tender. And I was just telling Drew, usually I need 10, 12 days of hanging
Yeah.
something to make it that tender. It was seriously like as tender as a New York strip.
To be perfectly honest, I don't. My knowledge on the whole processing side of things and aging meat is limited, but we're digging into it because we're talking about making a processor here in Atlanta.
It was so good.
But I think the key with that deer is most of the time it's how the deer dies. If they're really tense when they die, then
Yep.
the meat's not tender.
It's got the lactic acid in
that
it.
deer
Yeah.
died quick.
It died quick, and then it's been in the freezer, which I run as a refrigerator with like this little external modem thing.
I saw that.
Yeah,
Yeah. Awesome.
for like 2 days.
So tender. I mean, folks,
But it's never
was very
been
tender.
frozen, so I think that has a big part to do with the tenderness and the freshness as well.
Yeah, and then that grill you have is awesome too. I want to get one of those.
It's a Komodo Joe, which is essentially a green egg, but it's got more features.
Yeah, it looks
More
a lot.
It's like a fancy big green
Yeah,
egg.
that's exactly what I was
It's
thinking.
also red.
What's crazy is the people that own that company. It's owned by Masterbuilt. It's a family that like is involved with the high school that we went to.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, we got connected through.
Well, it was
high school.
delicious.
But
That
anyways,
was amazing. Because when you said it's the buck I killed 2 days ago, I was like, oh, this could be a little tense here.
yeah,
Oh, it was delicious.
yeah.
It was amazing.
So our first podcast seemed like it was a hit. I think people liked it. I
I
think
don't know
it was.
why.
Well,
Was
I
it
think
your
it was.
fart?
Yeah, I mean, people did mention my fart a lot. I just burped. Like, I'll probably fart some this podcast as well. I'll make sure to capture the audio for you guys out there. I haven't been drinking many protein shakes this time, so that probably won't have the
Only
aura
3
that
today.
the last one did. So
Yeah, only 3 in the last 24 hours.
But I think it was kind of like people's first glimpse. Like when we're doing YouTube videos, it's just such a small narrative of who we are.
Yeah, it's
And
really like a cross section.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like a fraction of the entire picture. And I think that this podcast is like hopefully an opportunity for people to kind of get to know the who we are, kind of the realness of it.
Kind of makes me nervous.
They may not like what they find.
They have this some presupposition of who we are based on the videos that we put out, and the more we put out, the more they learn about who we actually are, and it's scary.
We're all flawed individuals, is what we are.
100% flawed. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
But I will say the first podcast, there was a couple takeaways. I think we started a huge debate. And Bill, I would like you to say this word.
Don't go here.
What word?
I'm going to show it to you, but I would appreciate it if you would read this word to me. There was a couple things.
Bill is a man of multiple languages, so
he speaks like 4 languages.
3
languages. Your daughter speaks 4 languages, correct?
I'm not my daughter.
Correct. You are not your daughter.
Yes,
but your daughter speaks 4 languages.
She's pretty smart.
Does your daughter speak 4 languages?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I kind of feel like he's gonna go with not what I'm hoping he's gonna go with here.
Me too.
Because I feel like Bill and Drew are very connected intellectually. I feel like an outcast right now.
I'm definitely.
I do not want to
dumb down this. When here's my role in this podcast we're about to get into is when you guys go down a road,
translator,
it is way over the head. I'm gonna bring you back to earth.
All right. I don't feel like I can do that.
Please read this word.
Oh, this is hilarious.
Please.
Niche.
Yeah!
No! No. Really?
Oh, man.
I mean,
we just peeked the crap out of the mics, but I don't even care because that makes me feel smart that Bill pronounces it like that.
You know how
much? First of all, I am not the threshold for what makes things smart or not smart. That we have to dispatch with that right now.
That sparked a huge debate of
so how do you
niche.
say it?
I say niche, like
niche.
N-I-T-C-H. And we got so many comments on our Instagram that was like, it's
but
pronounced
niche.
niche.
Be like N-I-T-C-H?
Agreed.
Yes. But like.
I'm not trying to be a dick, by the way. Can
No,
I say
I know
that?
you're
Wait,
not.
I'm sorry. Can I say that?
Whatever.
Yeah, you dropped that bomb.
I don't
earlier.
know. I did?
Yeah, you didn't know we were recording, but
I didn't know we were recording. You're not releasing that.
It's going in there.
By the way.
So, I'm going to have to ask somebody else. But
I mean, I Googled it. I asked Webster during that podcast, and it said
I don't
niche.
trust Google.
To be fair, I Googled it later, and it said niche or niche.
Yeah, it would actually be both are acceptable.
Yeah.
I
I'm going with
messaged
what Bill
Drew
says.
afterwards because there was people that were commenting like, ain't no Georgia boy calling that word niche.
Because like in French, the word niche.
Ain't no friend of
That's
mine.
hilarious. That's hilarious.
And I was giving Drew this feedback, and
Not in America, sir.
instead of the response of like, haha, that's funny, it was like, Drew was like, I did more research on it, and I forgot what you said, but it was like, you clearly did more research on it, and was like, I guess it can go either way. I was just saying that to be funny, like, hey, we kind of sparked this debate of niche. But it's like,
So
you
like
guys.
in French, it's like niche is like a kennel.
Yeah.
It's like an alcove.
Yes.
Like a little place that you go.
There's one more question. Well, there's several questions, but there's one more question that I want to ask you because I feel like you would settle this debate for me, or
no.
you would give really good insight.
I hope I'm with you on this one because
Drew's super familiar with this question, and I feel like whenever we have a guest on this podcast, I want to ask them
We've
this
had
question.
many in the years past of this podcast, so
You are actually our first guest.
I feel honored.
But when we were on Bo Martonic's podcast,
East meets West.
God, I hate
yeah,
that guy.
He's the
asked
worst.
him this
Is he not
question.
the worst though? Can we
He's
just
not- yeah,
get that out of
he's
the way?
Freaking gosh.
That was the one.
Intolerable.
I can't even we'll have to cut it out if I say it, so I just won't even say it.
We're being sarcastic. He's a good dude. But
He's the best.
I asked him this question on his podcast, and it, we kind of got into this debate about it. And I think it's a fair debate. I ask a lot of people this. I get a lot of mixed opinions. Drew has a different opinion than me on this one. But I feel like with your military, I feel like you're a guy that has seen the world multiple times over. you just have lived a lot of life that not many people get to see. So I'm kind of excited to unpack your brain a little bit. But
is this going to be a super deep question, or is it going to be like
not.
It's going to be so shallow that
Absolutely
you
not.
can't even imagine?
But I feel like with your military experience and just your intellect, that you may know the anatomy part of this question to give a fair answer.
And I'll say before you ask the question, I'm sorry. I've also been drinking here for a few hours, people. So I feel like our society, the military, obviously veterans, the military, it's a very noble thing to get into and to do. But I feel like we ascribe way too much virtue to it. Like having been on the inside, like no question, we need soldiers. We're it's best army in the world. But like we get a lot of undue credibility. Sometimes. So I'm trying to use that statement to tamper anyone's expectations of myself. Because there's probably people listening to this who's way smarter than me. And they're like, man, that Bill Thompson guy is an idiot. And so I'm just telling them, hey, I know that I'm dumb. And so
You are. I think that a lot.
There you go. Good. So anyway, your question, sir.
Yeah, the listeners will get a clear picture of that at the end of this podcast. I'm sure that I'm way smarter than you. Anyways.
You're at least better looking.
Thank you.
There you go.
Do I need to move my chair a little further away from you? I feel like I'm getting some weird vibes. I'm just kidding.
I'm not going to go
All right,
there.
so here's my question.
You're both... never mind.
Go on. I'll take any compliment I can get.
Your question, sir. Oh, you're both better looking than I am. Your question, sir.
But who's better looking?
Out of the two of you? I don't know.
Keep your shirt on, please.
Anyways, so... Golly, guys, we gotta hone this in.
Yeah, we
this
do.
Is getting
we're getting off. We're on the rabbit trails right now. Folks,
quick.
this is going to be all over the place.
Ask the question.
I'm trying to get there. All right.
What's in the box?
I want this to be a question I ask anybody we have on our podcast because your response tells me everything I need to know about you.
Oh, my goodness. No
Would
pressure.
you rather be bare-fisted punched in the face by Mike Tyson? Like, you just have to sit there and take it in his prime. So not as he is now, but Mike Tyson
one
in his prime.
time or multiple times?
One punch. Okay. Bare-fisted. He can punch you. He can uppercut you. He can punch you everyone in the head.
Oh, that sounds horrible.
As hard as he possibly can. You just have to stand there and take it. Or would you rather take a Tiger Woods driver to your shin? Like, he just takes his driver and swings into your shin as hard as he possibly
Tiger Woods
can.
driver to the shin.
Thank you.
No question.
Thank you. Thank you.
I mean, I don't die of brain damage in that. No matter what happens.
Dude,
Here's the
that's
thing,
the
though.
point I've been trying to make.
But if you're getting punched in the face, you can make your body as limp as you want it to be.
I don't know you this well, and I feel like we might get to learn each other a little more
you know me
here.
so well.
I mean, I feel like I know you, but I don't know you this well. How many times have you been punched in the face hard?
I've been knocked cold out. I did MMA I wrestled all through high school, MMA and jiu-jitsu through college.
Oh, we should roll.
I sparred with a dude. So there was this one dude at the gym I trained at, 6'6", super athletic, wingspan of a freaking eagle, and I was stupid.
So now I'm stupefied that you would rather take a punch from the greatest fighter that ever lived.
But the thing is,
besides maybe Muhammad Ali.
So I sparred with the guy. Sparring is not my strong suit. I'm much better on the ground from wrestling.
Yeah.
This dude straight up just like cold knocked me out in about 30 seconds.
Yeah.
But when you get knocked out, you just kind of forget about it. And
yeah, but when Mike Tyson knocks you out,
situation here.
You will change the way you produce words with your mouth.
See, Bo's answer was a punch to the face from Mike Tyson.
What?
Dude, you would be amazed how many people I get that answer from. And I'm like, dude, if worst case scenario with the driver to the leg, like maybe I lose my leg.
No.
Okay? I'm still alive.
Yeah.
I still know who I am. If you get a bare-fisted Mike Tyson punch to the face, like I feel like you are best case scenario, severe brain damage for the rest of your life.
This way. There are no prosthetic heads. There are only prosthetic legs and arms.
That's what I'm saying.
You can't get the doctor
like
to cast you
if
ahead.
he uppercutted you.
Oh, dude.
I feel like it would detach your head from your spine. Like I feel like you have the potential for death, severe brain damage, as opposed to like I'm gonna live. I'm gonna be fine if I take the driver to the shin.
There are these kids up in Canada where I lived for a couple of years up in Canada when I was young, and they were knocking each other out with like sleeper holds, essentially. And one of the kids had fallen and hit his head on the side of the table and died. So it's like that's all the force it takes for you to just get hit the wrong way.
I finally feel like I can rest my case.
Mike Tyson can absolutely apply that force. So wait, you're telling me, Drew, whom I love like a brother from another mother, that you would rather take Mike Tyson's fist?
You said bare-fisted?
Bare fist.
To the head over Tiger Woods' ball to the shin? Because I've taken a ball on the fly.
No, it's not a ball.
Are we talking?
He's taking a driver.
A
and
driver.
just straight hitting your shin.
Yeah, I'd still rather take the driver.
Okay.
Are we talking chin, temple?
Wherever he wants. It's
back of the head?
That's
all
a
of those
gamble.
are bad. I mean, if I have to get hit in the face, I want to get hit right here.
Forehead.
Like top of your forehead where it crowns.
Yeah. I mean, I just don't want either, so.
All right, well, I feel like I can move on from that. I've rested my case. We can move on to other topics
super interesting.
now.
I can't wait to hear what, other people.
I promise you I've probably asked 100 people in my lifetime that question. And I would tell you probably 80% say they would rather take the Mike Tyson punch.
Other similar questions involve Conor McGregor and a bunch of chickens with razor blades attached to their talons.
That I also think could you beat Conor McGregor in a straight up fight if he was like 3'3"? maybe 3'6".
No. He has to slip one punch.
I kind of agree with you.
He has to slip one punch.
I could go down that rabbit hole for hours, but I feel like we need to get onto some actual topics.
I mean,
here.
that question's great, though. I mean, if I had a podcast, I just thought of what my question was.
See, that's the way my brain works, is I'm full of ridiculous questions. And I'm happy that we have a platform where I can now exploit those questions.
Why don't we start out by giving the backstory of how we met Bill?
Yeah, I think that's fair. To get on some sort of actual
narrative.
Yeah.
Go for it. Somebody want to handle this?
Yeah, so we had Taylor Chamberlain in town, which if you don't know him, he's the urban bowman. He hunts Washington, D.C. A good bit. And he was, early on when it came to the suburban game, the knocking on door type stuff, he was kind of the other guy. It was kind of us and him. And early on, there really wasn't that many people doing it. And so we kind of connected with him.
Well, no wonder you guys dominated. I'm just joking.
It's not very stiff competition.
And dang, was that
Taylor?
I
love Taylor.
We'll take several more.
Well, I'll take 3 or 4 more jabs.
So
he's an amazing golfer.
So anyways, Taylor came in town and we were kind of building out the master class and we were doing podcasts, and Taylor said that he had met Bill, and Bill was building this app that as opposed to human, other deer predictability apps out there where it's human experience with deer, that Bill was creating, had basically taken 7 years to create this app that was gathering basically collared deer data from several different universities, plugging it into an AI type of program that is most definitely the most accurate deer predictability platform out there for sure.
Yeah, I can truthfully say that right now.
Yeah, for sure. And you combine that with the mapping and everything you're doing with that, you just built a really awesome holistic app.
Yeah, in about 7 months.
Yeah.
So what makes me happy about this is how quick we did it.
I think it's cool you were building it while you were still in the military. Your heart and your passion was in hunting. And as you're kind of entering that retirement into your career phase, you were kind of building this thing out.
I'd get home from work and I'd spend about 2 hours with the kids.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'd get to working on this thing until about 1 or 2 in the morning. Then I wake up at 6 and I'd rinse and repeat and do it all over again.
You said 7 months. You spent 7 years.
No, the last...
I just saw a massive shooting star. That was cool.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Wow.
No, I've been collecting and aggregating the data for 7 years.
Right.
So there's I can parse this out. There's 2 separate efforts. The first effort was just to make a machine that could predict deer movement, and I've been working on that for 7 years. And then what happened was I was getting ready to partner with a couple of other mapping companies, and either they just thought they could, run roughshod over me, or they didn't understand the value of the work that we were doing. And, they were offering us paltry numbers to integrate the capability. And I was like, look, the hard part here is not the mapping. That's the easy part, actually.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
The hard part here is everything that I've done that I'm trying to show you guys. And either you're failing to understand it or you just don't value it, which is fine. Maybe it's my problem because I'm not relating the value here.
Mm-hmm.
Regardless, I'll just go build the damn map. Like the map, I can do that. So I've been working on the mapping part and everything else besides the deer prediction piece for 7 months.
Mm-hmm.
But I've been working on the deer prediction piece for 7 years.
And you were able to get access to information that nobody else has. Period.
Yes. It was just took a lot of dinners with academics and hey, how you doing, and hanging out. And
So backing up a little bit, Taylor just almost like nonchalantly says, "Hey, this guy that I met recently. It was very recently. I think
we had
met you.
met like a month or two.
Yeah,
earlier.
he was like, "Hey, I think you should probably talk to this guy. I think he wants to talk to you. He's got this idea for this app." And we were like, "Okay, yeah."
I mean, I didn't know he was going to talk
to
to you guys about me because I was.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys remember.
I don't
I was
think he
bass
was-
fishing
I don't
with
think
my
he was
son.
supposed to.
Yeah, he was like,
Dropping
yeah,
hints
he
and
was.
stuff.
He was almost like, "I'm not supposed to talk."
Well, we
about
had
this.
him under an NDA.
So that shows how much you can trust.
An
Taylor
NDA
Sherman.
with Urban Bowman about his.
Good as toilet paper.
Yeah, it was solid. But anyway, I was bass fishing with my son because I remember he met. I was on this river where I barely get any service, and he messaged me. He's like, "Hey, I just talked to the Seek One guys about your app." I was like, son of a gun. And he's like, "Hey, you got to come up because they want to talk before you leave." And I was like,
Well,
telling my kids, "Hey, we got to stop bass fishing. We got to go up and get some 4G LTE so I can talk to these guys."
the timing of it was right because
It couldn't have been more perfect.
yeah, and to be honest with you, there's other apps out there, but you were the first person to combine them all into one and make them better. You improved what was out there, combined it into one. And to be honest with you, what Drew and I were using, it was just slow. I was getting frustrated because the imagery wasn't pulling up. I'm driving around and I'm having
three of our bigger, like between you guys and Levi and Taylor, the first thing was I'm constantly losing points.
Yeah.
Which is
glitchy.
A dumb data problem
Yeah.
that is so easily fixable. I couldn't wrap my head around it. If I get a guy that's like Drew or Lee or, Levi Morgan says I'm losing points, it's that's my priority is we can't have a hunting app where you lose points, where you go out and walk or spend a half day off from work, dropping points in a map because you're scouting, and then they just get lost. Mm-hmm. And I think Levi said he lost something like 1,200 points or something.
Really?
Yeah.
With one of the apps he was using. Yeah.
Crap.
So combined with the timing of it all and then meeting you, after meeting you and spending time with you and getting to know you, you're a really good dude. You're just a really good person.
You're a sweetie.
And you, we can, I don't know, you just meet people and
Yeah.
And
I don't know how much we want to bro out in this podcast, but I feel the same. I feel the
Should I
same
leave
way.
y'all alone for a little bit?
No, I feel the same
You
way about
did.
you too.
You
so
did.
You don't leave.
You're the one making weird comments.
Oh,
Anyways,
stop.
it's just we kind of gravitated to each other.
Yeah.
You're just a really good. When you meet someone that's got a good, genuine heart, you want to work with them.
Yeah, but also my thing with you guys and with the people that I've surrounded myself with in Spartan Forge, one of my things in my military career was never that I was the smartest really at anything that I did. In fact, I most times wasn't. But what I could do was bring together people, in the special missions units that I worked in. I got to assemble my own teams. My strength was never that I was the smartest guy in the room. My strength generally was I could find the people that I needed and get a good team together of people who have unique interests. And my thing in this hunting venture was I want to bring people together who are genuinely, from their foxhole in the military, as we say, or from their perspective, are genuinely interested in making other people better hunters and better people at the same time.
Yeah, I think that's the heart of what you're doing is.
I really
with
do.
What you made is you want to help those people become more successful, give them any sort of advantage they can.
Yeah.
And if you have a guy that's, a dad that's got kids at home and he's trying to plan a trip or, should I go hunting this weekend? Should I take time to
scouting? Whatever.
And it's he has this app that hopefully helps him maximize his time in the woods when time is so limited these days.
Especially today. Yeah.
That's kind of your mission and your heart behind it.
Yeah, and it's just to do that and to do it in the best way that I know possible. And to be honest, anytime you're processing data, the best thing that you can do is remove the human.
Yeah.
Because when you take the human out of the equation, you remove the bias.
Yeah.
And that's the best thing about neural networks they act independent of bias.
Yeah.
As long as your distributions are normalized. I'm not trying to be nerdy here, but for me, that was my talent in the military, was finding the right guys. And I still am, working. Everybody that worked for me in the military, I still communicate in some form or fashion with. But then also, when I get all of those guys together, we're always like, brothers from other mothers. And then the same thing happened this year, I think, at the Spartan Forge veteran hunt get together.
It was a special thing.
It really was. Like, everybody just like gelled and got along, and everyone was there for the right reasons, and everyone just I don't know how to explain it. It was like a bunch of frat brothers or something, or old military buddies, or it's the only way I can describe it. We're getting together for the first time in a long time, and everyone was just genuinely, in the right place at the right time for the right reasons, and everyone is still talking, in those groups.
Yeah. I mean, there's like a brotherhood, little fraternity thing that's kind of,
and that's what I hang my hat on. Like, that is what this is all about for me.
And so, kind of unpacking more of you is that there's probably going to be stuff that we talk about here that I don't know if I don't want you to say anything about your military career that you're not okay saying, because
I won't.
You've done some crazy stuff that maybe you can, maybe you can't say, but essentially you used to use AI, gather intelligence to track down and kill terrorists for our military.
Yeah, I mean, in a multitude of fashions, but like one of them would just be something simple, because people hear that and they automatically think like, that Shia LaBeouf movie where he's got like the eye in the sky and he's killing people. That's not what I was doing.
I have no idea what movie you're talking about.
There's some movie, I don't remember what it is, but it's like he's got this like artificial intelligence
I know
tracking
what you're talking
him.
about. I can't remember what it's called.
And it's,
is it Shia LaBeouf?
It's Shia LaBeouf. But
big Shy guy.
Let me put this in a way that people might understand, right? Like, maybe a terrorist network comes up with a really esoteric or like unique way of passing or parsing data through a communication system. Then what I might do is use artificial intelligence to decipher that communication system so that we can target them, right? So it's not as like sexy as, when you say it, it sounds a lot sexier than.
Well, that's my job.
What actually what I was doing was taking packet capture data and deciphering it so we could make sense of esoteric networks that were deployed around the Middle East. That doesn't preach. No one cares when I say that. But that's not
honest,
really.
I have no idea what you just said.
Don't sell yourself short. You told us.
But yes,
everything we talked about last night, which probably should have been recorded, escape and evade.
Oh,
classes,
no, that was just like SEER school.
Halo, jump classes.
But those are just like classes that you go to, and there's like an old saying in the military, like you can go to ranger school, but you're not a ranger. Like these are just schools that I go to, and a lot of those schools I re-enlisted for. Like I didn't even really have a reason to go to the school. I just wanted to because it sounded cool.
Yeah.
But all I'm trying to say is there are people in the military that do a lot cooler jobs than the jobs that I did.
You're being modest.
It's not inaccurate to say that in my military intelligence job as both an enlisted guy and an officer, we leveraged artificial intelligence to track and, execute a targeting cycle on a bad guy.
Why don't you spend 3 minutes giving a background of your military career? And I don't think I've asked you the question before, but like, what led you to join the military in the first place?
Jeez.
Like what, that might take more than.
No, I can do this in 3 minutes.
Okay.
It's just funny because it's not going to be what everyone wants to hear. I wanted to get the hell out of North Dakota is why I joined the military. Well, I should say first, I knew I wanted to leave North Dakota because essentially in North Dakota, if you're not a farmer or a banker or a person in the support industry that supports farmers or bankers, there's not a job for you in North Dakota. Like that's basically the whole industry.
I would think that more than 50% of the military would have that same story.
Yeah, maybe. So what I did was we had recruiters come to the school like my senior year, and they had an ASVAB. Essentially what happened was I had these teachers that always used to ride me because my father was a mechanical engineer and very smart and a farmer. And, went out and made some machinery and did a lot of cool stuff. And, had all of this awesome stuff that the teachers at the school I went to knew about. And then they saw me. My father died when I was young. And they see me and they'd be like, look, you're manifesting some of the same characteristics your father manifested. You should really try to go down the same route that he did. You could do some things. I had this teacher, her name was Connie Trenbeth. She would sit me down like every week or two and be like, you're wasting your life. Like you could be so much more. Because all I wanted to do was make fun of people, talk out of turn, cause trouble. I hadn't focused my energy. I didn't know where I wanted to put myself. And I was able to still get C's and B's by doing that. But essentially...
You were a C and B student?
Yeah.
I never would have guessed that.
What would you have guessed I was?
Straight A's?
Oh, no. Hell no. Nope. C's and B's, and I never cracked a book. And in fact, there were some classes where I would just listen to what was being said, and then I would gauge how well I could do. And then I'd pride myself like an asshole by not opening the book and still passing the class.
We had a guy like that in our grade. His name is Michael Douglas. And that guy pissed me off so much. No, not the actor. This guy.
Michael Douglas, if you're out there, please contact us.
I would actually love to do a podcast.
I want to. Probably one of the smartest people I've ever met in my
Dude,
life.
he would sleep in class.
Yeah, that same story.
Show up with one shoe on.
Just aloof. Like, just.
I wouldn't say I was aloof. I was actually trying to distract people. But I remember that we had a health class that my football coach taught. And we had gotten brand new books that were in the plastic. And there was this other kid who was kind of like a jack off as well. And his name was Bryce. And I looked at him and I said, I'm going to get a B in this class, or I'm going to get a C in this class. It was a C. I said, I'm going to get a C in this class, and I'm not going to open this book. I'm not going to take the plastic off. I'm going to hand this book back in with the plastic on it. And I did it. And at the time, I was proud of it. And now I look back at it, and I'm like, what a waste of time and flesh and thought and time. Like everyone. So anyway, I had this teacher who was doing this, and I shouldn't have focused on that because I'm chasing rabbits. But essentially, the recruiter started coming to the school, and this teacher said to me, you should go take this ASVAB, the Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery. And if you take it, you can get the second part of school off. Like you get the afternoon off if you take this test. I was like, if I get the afternoon off, I'm taking this test. Like, just tell me where to go and do it. I think it was the armory. I had to go to the armory and do it. So I took this test, and they ended up coming back and saying, like, I did pretty well on it. And then we had started, at that time, we had kind of like abandoned the SATs and gone to like what was called the ACT. Mm-hmm. And then I'd done really well on that, too.
What'd you get? What were your scores?
36?
37.
No way.
What?
On an ACT?
36 is a
36
perfect score.
No, 36 or 37. No, it's not a perfect score. No. It was up there.
This is where we need the fact checker guy.
Here's why I know it was like 36 or 37.
Yeah, we need
because my teacher came to me and said, you're wasting it all.
What's your SAT score?
I didn't take the SATs.
You didn't? Really?
No.
I thought SAT were
so
big back then.
36 is a perfect score on an ACT.
Well, then maybe then I take it back. Maybe I had a 35 or something.
Almost perfect.
It was up there enough that this same teacher came to me and was like, you're wasting your life.
ACT is way more difficult than the SAT from my experience.
I don't know.
SAT, as long as you're like
the SAT,
if you're just a good test taker, process of elimination, you can figure it out. ACT is like actual testing your knowledge of different subjects.
So, funny story.
Did you take either?
I took both. I don't remember
Did you break 1,000 with both added together?
Now I feel like I need to research.
I did. So
before you go any farther, I feel like I need to research and actually get what my number is. Because if 36 is perfect,
fine. I mean,
if a 36 is perfect, then I think it was probably 35.
Yeah,
that's unheard of.
So, no, it's not unheard of because there was another kid in the school that actually did better than I did. Yeah. So anyway, the recruiters came to the school, and here's the first reason why I chose the Army. So like there's a bunch of services, and we're way beyond 3 minutes, by the way. I chose the Army because all of the girls that I thought were hot in my high school were talking about how hot the Army guy looked in his uniform.
That woodland camo just really got him going.
It was like the Class A's at the time, which looked like, we called them the Gumbies, but they were like this all green uniform. Yeah, it was this all green uniform with a green shirt, green jacket. So that's why I chose the Army. So I went and talked to the Army recruiter. And he's like, yeah, you did really well on this like ASVAB, and you can pretty much choose any job you want. At this time, I was like 17. So I'm going to cut this short because I said 3 minutes. I went to the MEP station, and being a douchebag 17-year-old, I was like, you know what sounds cool? Having a gun and a badge. So I want to be an MP. The guy's like, you want to be an MP? All right, cool. Let's make you an MP. So
What's an MP?
Military policeman.
Police.
So
Smarter than you.
Wow.
21 of the ACTs. So we went to so I had to drive, where I was from is Cavalier, North Dakota. We had to drive from Cavalier to Fargo, North Dakota, which is like 3 hours away. Fargo. Sure, you betcha. Insert the Norwegian jokes. But
We'll get there.
anyway, we drove up there, and as like an idiot, like an irresponsible idiot, I'd forgotten my driver's license. So as we're doing like my MEPS packet,
today.
I did do that today.
Yeah. Wait a second.
My wallet.
All right, so because
I forgot my wallet and my
what
phone.
I do want to get into after your story is your hunting experience here, because this is your first suburban experience.
Yes, it is.
We leave at my house this morning. I'm taking you to a late season spot. We're like sitting in the driveway, and he's like, "Oh, I don't have my wallet." I was like, "Well, do you need it?" He's like, "No, I'm fine." You sure? Yeah, I don't need it. Okay, all right, we'll leave. Driving down the road. Did we get to the spot, or did we like?
No,
it was
we were
halfway
almost
there.
there. We were almost there.
We're almost there, and he's like, "Oh, I don't have my phone." I was like, "Huh? You forgot your wallet and your phone?"
Mo Fracking, do you
Like,
run an app?
how am I supposed to know if anything happens to you?
Does your
while you're
company work? Does it run on an app?
It's like you're
on a
supposed
phone?
to be the smart guy.
Well,
You're pulling my move.
Hold on now. To lend some context here, Lee was like pressuring me to hurry up. He was like, "Are you ready? Are you ready? Drink your coffee. Let's go." And I was like, "Okay." I was sitting at the table, like grabbing my stuff, and I just was tightening my boots, like tying my boots up. He's like, "Are you ready to go?" And I was like, yeah, let's go. And so I went and grabbed the coffee, and I put my phone down when I grabbed the coffee. I didn't need the wallet ultimately, but because you paid for my chicka boom boom. Another inside joke. Sorry.
So, anyways, get back to your story, and then I
want to end this because people don't want to listen to this much about the military. So I get to the MEPS recruiting station, and they basically did like MEPS, like signing you up and actually putting you in the Army. I think they did it once a month, or maybe it was once every 2 weeks. But essentially, what it meant was, if you're from like the Grand Forks recruiting station in North Dakota, where I was from, they would only in-process people in the Army every 2 weeks. So he was like, well, you can't be an MP. We have to like submit a packet to Big Army saying that you're going to be a military policeman. And the only way to do that is with a copy of your driver's license. And I was like, well, it's at home, and I don't know what to tell you. Like, I don't have it. And he's like, all right, well, you have to come back next month. And I was like, not only no, but like F no. I'm not coming back next month. Like, you need to get me out of North Dakota right now. I can't be here anymore. Like, I need to leave. If I don't leave now, I'll probably get... I remember thinking to myself, I'll get arrested in the next month. Because I'll just go crazy.
Have you been arrested before?
Not
because I have.
Yeah, not
I'm talking. No. I'm giving away way too much information. This is
we gotta
a
tell
very
the arrest.
vulnerable place for me.
Gotta tell the arrest story.
I'm gonna say stuff I really shouldn't say.
Well, I have been arrested not in this country, and that's another podcast. I was arrested overseas once. Regardless, so I said no. Like, what job can I do now? Like, I need to leave tomorrow morning, because what was going to happen was they're going to put me in a hotel room. The next morning, I was going to get on a bus and go to basic training. And the last thing in the world I wanted to do was go back, like, not to tell a sob story, but all I was thinking was, I have to go back to my shitty trailer in the middle of nowhere, North Dakota, and wait another month to leave. And, like, my first thought was, oh, my buddies are going to make fun of me, like, the Army rejected me, whatever. Like, it wasn't going to go well. So I was like, you guys need to tell me what job I can do and leave tonight or tomorrow morning. Like, what is it? Like, well, you did really high on your GT score, like your general technical score. So we have, like, slots we're trying to fill for military intelligence. And I was like, okay, cool. What's that? What am I going to do? And they said, well, here, we're going to give you this language test thing. And I was like, all right, I know I'll do well on that. Like my mother, when I grew up, they'd speak Icelandic in the house. So I was like, I feel like I'll do pretty decent on that. So let's take that. So I took that, and he's like, yeah, you could be like a 98 Charlie or a 98 Juliet, which is essentially like an intelligence guy that listens to like other people speaking languages, and you could do that job. But you have to get briefed by this recruiter guy that has to come in who's got a clearance, and you have to go into like a SCIF, a secure compartmented information facility, and get briefed on the job. And all I heard was like James Bond music. Like all I was,
we're gonna get into
yeah,
James Bond.
no, we're not. But
Yeah,
all I
we
heard
are.
was ding, 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 ding. That's all I was hearing.
Cougar Magnum in
Like
your hip
I
pocket.
knew,
Had a flashback.
I knew immediately I wanted to do
PP7.
that. And meanwhile,
Golden
it
gun.
was like the nerdiest, worst job in the like my initial job in the military was like radar analysis. Like I was doing analysis of like, people can Google it, but like pulse repetition interval for radar stuff. It's just like the driest, worst stuff. A bunch of math.
But to me, it's a White Claw, guys.
Hey, I'm Bo,
that was
I'm
a
Bo
White Claw.
Martonic.
Don't get too excited. It's not a beer. It's a White Claw. I'm just kidding. It's a Bush Latte. Or no, it's not.
It's a Mickey.
Anyways, I think what's cool about what you just said is like, I think everybody out there has something they can point to that's maybe like a small detail in their life that changed the trajectory of
Whole
their
trajectory.
entire life.
And that's exactly
And
what that
yours
was.
came down to a
Leaving my
forgotten ID,
like
wallet.
leaving my wallet at home.
And it literally changed the entire trajectory of your
absolutely.
of your life. Like,
Absolutely.
I think everybody can point to like a moment like that where it's like, wow, if that hadn't happened to me, I never would have gone down this road that led to this.
And if I'd become an MP, I would have hated myself.
Right.
Like the moment I figured out like what MPs were all about, and I have nothing against MPs, it's a necessary function, but you're literally arresting your brothers. It's like, oh, you're a cool guy on base that's willing to risk your life for country and everything else. Well, guess what? You're doing a 39 and a 35. So I'm gonna jack you up.
To not get too like philosophical, because if we go down that road, it's just gonna
go really bad.
No, it's not gonna bad. It's just we could talk about it for hours, but to me, like, I don't look at those moments, those itty bitty moments like that, as coincidences. Like, I think that there's greater meaning there that's ordained. Like, God had a hand in that.
It's literally the reason I'm here tonight.
Yeah.
Me forgetting my wallet, I can tie a string from that moment to us
that
being
changed it all
here right now.
Well, I was gonna before we got, but we're 45 minutes in. At like 44 minutes, I was gonna say, this is the only time I'm gonna get deep on the podcast. And before we hopped on, started recording, we talked about some stuff that like has been extremely important to Lee and I with the whole brand, and that's our faith. And Bill went on this tangent about, and I provoked it. I asked a question, a very deep question.
Yeah.
About creation versus how do you reconcile science and creation?
Yeah.
The creation story in Genesis in the Bible.
Yeah.
And Bill literally just started spewing this information that he's obviously spent hours and hours and hours and hours.
Yeah, months.
Just pondering.
You've just taken such a different look at it than
it. Just like I was focused on what you were saying, but I was also like, holy crap! Like, this is not a coincidence that Lee and I got connected to you.
Absolutely not.
Because we're unique and you're extremely unique, and like people like that don't just get connected by coincidence.
And I think that's why I believe so much in like you as a person and what you're doing and things like that. Like, to me, it was less about the amazing like thing you created. It was more about like, I just feel like there's something else here.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
and then there's just like a deep connection with you. Yeah. And I know that from Drew and I's vantage point, like when we stumble across somebody like you, we just like the opportunity to do anything we can to help with someone who's genuinely just like good, like you. Like I do believe, like we're talking about, that it was just kind of ordained. And I'll also throw out there, like, yeah, we're sitting around a campfire, we're having a few drinks, we've said a few, slur words, but we're not perfect people. Like, we're all flawed, but that's the nature of like being a believer, is that like acknowledging that we are not perfect. We are flawed. And that's like why we need a savior. Yeah. So like, I think people get too caught up. And I guess if we're being like totally honest here on this podcast, like I think that's part of my worry and kind of why I joke about like this is a podcast that's going to get us canceled, is like our faith has been a very important part of our mission of our videos, but we're also like normal people. We're humans. And just because I like to have a whiskey with my buddies or a beer with my buddies, and sometimes, I say some words I necessarily really shouldn't, like that doesn't make me less of a believer or less of a Christian, in my opinion. Like,
just speaks to your humanity.
We are all people.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So like, I hope that like nothing we ever do points or gives the image that like, hey, we're Christians, we think we're better than you.
Yeah, and that we're trying to be perfect in everything that we do.
Yeah, it couldn't be farther from the truth.
We're trying the best that we can, but at the end of the day, like we're people, and people as a whole, we're all flawed. We all have those things that we all fall short of the glory of God that make us, individual and unique to who we are. And I don't care who you are. Everybody's got something they struggle with. That
absolutely.
So I think I just wanted to throw that out there for people listening that may be like, oh, you guys are talking about your faith, but you're drinking or you've said a curse word or something like that. And it's like, yeah, we are. I mean, it's me. We're being real. We're wearing our faith on our sleeve. We do like to enjoy times with friends like this. It's a special moment for us, but it doesn't make anything that we believe less real.
Yeah, and Moses was a great prophet, and he also threw him down as well.
Yeah,
as far as I can tell. It's a joke, but well, he did. But anyway, well, it's true, and it's one of those things where I don't know how to put this. I'm not going to get deep in this podcast. I should.
There's about 15 other podcasts.
We did it. We could do about 15 other podcasts, but very quickly, there's like these two different ways that people talk to each other, and it's kind of how I evaluate who I want to surround myself with. And there are people who want to be right all the time, and kind of hang their hats on being the smartest people in the room and the intellectuals, and they would rather win an argument than forge a relationship. And then there are people who want to, when they're in dialogue with someone or with a group of people, it's like Christ said, where any, 2 or 3 people are gathered,
there I shall be.
There I shall be in your midst. Mm-hmm. There I am, right? So there's like the Greeks had 2 different ways of how people interact, 2 major different ways. There are lots of them, but there are 2 major ones. One was called Philonikeia. One was called Philosophia. Philonikeia is like when you're trying to talk to someone else to win the argument. Mm-hmm. And then Philosophia was where you're trying to have an argument or you're trying to have a discussion, but everyone's trying to better each other.
Yeah.
And I feel like when we get together, or when everyone, even at the hunting camp out at the veterans hunt, that was all Philosophia. Yeah. Like we're all trying. That's where the word philosophy comes from.
Yeah.
Philosophia, right? And so when we're all getting together, we're just everyone's just trying to better each other.
Yeah.
And everyone's truly concerned for everyone else.
Yeah.
And that's just like a great place to be with guys.
100% agree. And I think that like as a hunter, as a man, as a person, I think when you enter that headspace of like, I've got it all figured out, I have nothing else to learn, and you're not a sponge anymore of just like that desire to learn more, I think that's a dangerous place to be.
Yeah.
Because I'll relate it back to hunting. Like Drew and I have been doing the urban, we feel like we've mastered our craft. We've been doing this for 16 years, and it's crazy to believe that we've been doing it for that long.
Right.
But we still learn stuff every single year about these animals, and just like learning from other people and other people's experiences. And it's like when you lose that want to learn more and constantly digging in kind of deeper and like absorbing information instead of feeling like you need to project information.
Right.
I feel like the absorption is the place to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because there's so much to learn from other people and the experiences they've had, whether it has to do with hunting or just, life experiences, things like that.
Everything. Yeah, and so with me and with Spartan Forge and with you guys, I feel like we all have that common cause, that common thing where we're actually everyone's just trying to better each other.
We found some good people.
When we interact in our Slack channel, as we're doing the stuff about the application or something that you guys are doing or content or whatever, it's like Everyone's just genuinely concerned for each other
Now,
and seeing everyone
yes.
do better.
But there's
and that to
shit
me,
talking.
there's absolutely shit talking. But
we talked about this earlier.
Yeah,
'cause
we
it
did.
was like if you, I think you and I are the same way in that it's like if you're not giving someone a really hard time,
yeah,
that means I don't like you.
that means that I'm skeptical of you.
Right. But if I'm giving you the beans, like I'm giving you a really hard time,
Not the
that
beans.
means I like you. Like we're
Right, exactly.
We're having a good time. We're
Yeah,
vibing,
yeah.
that kind of stuff. So
Yeah, I feel like everyone's just right now listening to us forming our tight relationship, and they're like,
All right.
can we just get
All
to
right.
something else here, guys?
What do you do? What do you do? What
Okay,
did you
so
do in
I joined the
military?
military, and I became what was called a 98 Juliet, which is an electronic interceptor, which essentially meant I did analysis of radars. And it meant I had to go to like a bunch of math schools and learn everything I could about radars and how radars work and why they're important for like jets and the Cold War and all of that stuff. And then my military intelligence career from there kind of took some different. I kind of got into the cyber realm in my spare time. I was learning some programming languages and doing stuff at home, and I wanted to learn. I had first learned like HTML and how to do websites and Objective-C, and this was just stuff I was doing in my spare time. And then I gotten into, cyber, and people hacking had really gotten, kind of grasped my attention and how that works and what people are doing. And essentially the military has this program called the Great Skill Program, which is, you can Google, but it's essentially like an accepted career program in the military where they recognize that you have some unique skill sets. In the military, we have a problem where no matter how talented you are, everyone has to go fire rifles on Wednesdays or be at the motor pool checking on vehicles on Fridays or, road marching 40 miles in a week. There's these tasks that you have to do. But then what the military started to recognize, especially the Army, was we can't have the guy that we're, having working on our computer systems or securing our infrastructure worried about his 15-mile road march on Friday morning when he's got to secure a network for an entire division. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. He can't. It's like, hey, Private Joe Snuffy, you need to be in that road march Friday morning. It's like, well, actually, I need to secure all these nodes and terminals because, we're getting information that our network's going to be hacked before we deploy to Iraq. And so the Army recognized, we probably need to separate these guys that are really doing this kind of crazy shit from the rest of the formation so that they can't be concerned with this stupid stuff. Not stupid. I'm sorry. I shouldn't say that. I apologize. What I mean is stuff that you shouldn't be bothering someone with who's trying to secure the cyber capability of a unit, like its ability to communicate. So what the Army did was they created this thing called the Great Skill Program, which was essentially they recognized people that have unique, skill sets and aptitude and ability in certain areas, and they kind of remove them from the rest of the Army so they can just kind of focus on their trade craft, like their thing that they do, and not be bothered with some of those more mundane things. And it really was a great move because the only way you're going to get a really proficient cyber force or a really proficient all of these types of jobs is by allowing those people to focus and hone in on their one task. You know what I'm saying? They can't be bothered with a ton of other stuff. That or you need to hire civilians. Mm-hmm. It's one or the other. But civilians can't break things in the military. Only Army guys can break things. So they recognize this kind of space where military guys need to be doing this stuff. So anyway, I went into that program, and then my military intelligence career there really blossomed because I was able to go into all of these different directions. And essentially it was wherever I found had aptitude, they would just allow me to go take courses. So it was like, oh, you're into this? Go take that course. Or, hey, you want to learn Python? Go take this course. Or, hey, you're C++? Go and take this course. Or, hey, you want to learn how to hack a network? Go take this course. And it was really a great thing for me because, like I said, when I was younger, I had this ADD. And I had this, I was flippant towards the system. And really, right now, being 38 years old, I look back on it, and it was really because nobody sat me down and said, hey, if you learn algebra, you're going to understand how a radio works. If you learn trigonometry, you're going to understand how somebody can, geopoint where a lost, child's phone is that's been kidnapped. You need trigonometry to do that. And if someone had said that to me when I was
what the hell is trigonometry?
Right,
I
exactly.
believe it's an old wooden ship.
Sokotoa, but was the Indian on that ship. So if someone had said that to me when I was like 13, it would have zeroed me right in, because what I was doing with my own time when I was that age was, I remember we had these, like, I don't know if you guys had them, but because I'm older than you guys are, but I'd go home with these like Scholastic. It was called Scholastic, but it was like these really thin paper things, and you'd fill out books that you wanted, and your mom would put like a check in there, and you could get like 4 or 5 books.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
So we would get.
But I was a big trig guy back in the day.
Oh,
just to let you know.
Yeah, well, we talked about that.
Did we?
I've never read a
I think
book.
we did.
Not even
I've got a couple of good ones for you.
Maybe Where's Waldo?
A couple of doozies.
I've never read a book front to cover.
Well, we had these Scholastic. They were like flyers that the teachers would send us home with, and then we could order books. And I remember they would always have like not toys, but like things that you could mess with on the last page that weren't books. And I remember I ordered like a coiled radio, where you could, essentially build a radio out of nothing with no batteries or anything. And it was just this coil where you're picking up like HF radio signals and those types of things.
And then you build like magnets and like electronic magnets and stuff.
Yes,
Yeah, I know what
exactly.
you're talking about now.
So I ordered a bunch of that stuff, and I remembered I picked up what was a Vietnamese radio signal, and I'm not sure even where it was. It could have been from Vietnam, but it could have been from somewhere else. But I remember listening to it, and I had built this thing. And it was just this little radio kit, and it had astonished me that I was able to do this as a 12-year-old. And that was the last thing I kind of did in radios and radio frequency and electromagnetic theory until I joined the Army. And then when I got into the Army, I
hold on. What the hell are you talking about? You built a radio out of coils and batteries and hacked Vietnamese channel?
No, I didn't hack the channel. It was just I picked up essentially like a long wave.
From some nail salon.
It was probably
going on
It was probably like an atmospheric bounce or something. But I believe it was Vietnamese.
Atmospheric bounce?
Sure. Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking.
I believe that's what it was.
An AB. That's what we used to call it.
You guys don't remember those like little radios that you could build?
Dude,
no, I 100%.
I promise you the last thing on my to-do list when I was 12 years old was to build a radio.
I know exactly what you're talking about because I used to do the magnets. I'd take a big ass nail and wrap a wire around it. It was like a battery.
It was like a tuning coil crystal radio.
Sure.
And so like when I joined the military, I remember we learned about crystal controlled radios and like electrically timed controlled radios, which depends but you had like a crystal was controlling the radio essentially, and that's what I had built when I was a kid.
Crystal?
Your 3 minutes expired about 15 minutes ago.
We're talking about
let me stop.
atmospheric bounces of
But anyway,
Vietnamese
all
radios.
I wanted to get to was, had someone told me that if I just shut up and listened and learned math, that I could have done all of these things without joining the Army, I would have done it.
That's all you were trying to say in the 3 minutes?
No. Sorry.
Fast forward to the climax of your career.
So the climax is when I retired. But so anyway, I got into all these disciplines in the military where I was learning about cyber, ethical hacking, signals intelligence operations, human intelligence operations, support to combat operations, document and media forensics, video forensics, all of these things that I just got to go focus on and get left alone as a military officer. And it just, they really just wrote me a blank check to just go learn whatever I wanted and then go and apply it while I was deployed overseas.
So long story short, you tracked down.
It wasn't short, but
tracked down Bin Laden. And you dropped warheads on foreheads.
No, not Bin Laden.
Neither confirming nor denying tracking down Bin Laden.
There was no Bin Laden. There's no Bin Laden. I would
track down high value terrorists.
I absolutely
by gathering intel, creating AI and machine learning programs to
leveraging artificial intelligence, machine learning,
And figuring out where those high-value targets are going to be at certain times.
Yeah, and then pointing out the door to bigger and badder dudes than I
to
was.
SEALs, Delta Force, Rangers to go take down those targets.
All
But
the bad
on the real, when you boil it down, I'm a big advocate of layman's terms.
Yeah, let's do it.
Big advocate.
All right.
When you boil it down to its simplest, like almost effect that you had, is two things. One, it's a White Claw. Don't get too excited,
White
fellas.
Claw.
Is that the amount of soldiers' lives that you have probably saved?
At least secured, like, helped, yeah.
I don't know what that number is.
I don't either.
But it's a lot.
I mean, it's...
And I know that you have
kind of
also,
insurmountable.
you recently told us last night that you were given an accolade from the military at your retirement that you were not expecting, that is like almost of the utmost, like...
Well, it was much higher than I thought I was going to get.
And to me, I'm like, that is an acknowledgement, and you're being modest.
Of his humbleness.
Yes, but it is an acknowledgement of what you did for our country. And I will take my hat off right now. I'll do it, actually. Hold on, here we go.
Oh, his hat's off, guys.
For what
that
you
thing
did.
on your
Like
head's
you're
gonna get
balding.
chilly.
Yeah, for what you did for us.
Well,
And on top of that, I would also say, like...
I have a hard time with all of this.
I know you do, but I would also say, like, the bad, the terrorists that you were able to help kind of remove, potentially also saved American civilian lives. No telling what was in the works with those people that you were able to help kind of take out. So to me, it's an honor to like even have the opportunity to work with you and what you've created.
Well, I thank you. And I thank you for your patriotism. There are a lot of people out there that have done a lot more badder and cooler things than I have. I just would like, my thing is like, I'm just pleasured and honored to have worked with those guys that did those things. And, however I can leverage the little things that I know to help those things out. For me, it was like the great honor of my life to be able to do it. So thanks.
So 2 things. I don't know if we have an agenda here or not. Most likely not. But
0.
2 things that I wanted to touch base on. I think we touched base on your hunting experience here at the end. But this was one of the things I was getting really pissed off about last night that y'all were talking about that I didn't want you to talk about was...
Goldeneye.
Well, Goldeneye, 100%. But first, aliens. Like...
Oh,
you
man.
told me you've intercepted Vietnamese, blah, 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 whatever. But, like...
I didn't hack anything. I did not hack anything.
I want to know your thoughts on aliens. And I know that you touched base about this last night, and I purposely tuned out because I was like, you know what? This needs to be talked about on the podcast because I feel like if there's anybody that knows about aliens, it might be you.
First off...
Give me your 2 cents. Give me your 3 minutes on aliens.
All right. You guys tune in for the next hour because we're talking about aliens.
No, I'm going to stick to the time hacks from now on. I'm going to start a clock right now.
Isn't there like some new stuff that's come out?
Yeah,
So what we
like,
talked about last night was we're both Joe Rogan podcast listeners.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Mike Baker went on there multiple times, talked about aliens.
And I did not see that one.
You haven't talked? Yeah, okay. So, and I asked you, what are your thoughts on that? And I guess the first question was, do you know Mike Baker
No.
through your experience with some tri-letter agencies that you've worked for?
No, I don't know him.
Okay.
I've heard of him. I know some of his predecessors, like people that the agency basically says can go out and talk about things, but I don't know him. And I'll also say through my service, I had no tacit knowledge or direct interactions with anything extraterrestrial or UFOs. I was not associated with any of these government programs that did all of this stuff. So let me just say that out the gate.
Never worked on Area 51.
Nope.
Disappointing.
Yeah, I know. But sustained war. We had other things. We had other fish to fry. But I will say I should start from the presupposition of if the videos that I've seen are correct, which they seem to be, and I've also gone down this rabbit hole just as I've gone down other rabbit holes. I spent about 3 months on this rabbit hole right here that we're talking about,
And
which is aliens.
you're speaking of the Tic Tac video.
The Tic Tac video, and there's a few other ones.
What is the Tic Tac video?
There's
super cliff notes.
There's this Commander Fravor who was in charge of a flight, airmen that were, or I should say pilots, and they were off the coast of, I think, San Diego. And they, 2 different airframes had witnessed this tic-tac shaped object over the water that, long story short, like skipping all of the cool stuff, but just getting to the thing that's impossible, had gone from like right above the water to 60,000 feet in like less than a second. I think it was like a fraction of a second. They'd gone to like 60,000 feet.
And they got it on video?
Yeah, the whole thing's on video.
They had it on like missile lock or whatever the term is.
Well, they were trying to get it on missile lock. And
like they were about to blow it up.
Yeah, well, we have these systems on our airplane. Like they have these.
That would have been so badass if we'd blown up a spaceship.
Well, we have all these things.
Tic-tac spaceship.
We have all these radars, which I know a lot about on these airplanes, that are designed to track and to, beat jamming and all of those different things. And they couldn't get a lock on this thing, but they had a visual lock on it. And there's 2 things to me that struck me as interesting. The first one was they couldn't get a lock on this thing no matter what radars they were trying to use or how they were trying to establish lock on it. They couldn't do it. And if you understand how radars work, you should be able to establish lock on something that's stationary. That should be fairly straightforward because a radar has a thing that's called like a pulse that it sends out. And these pulses, you can think of them as like sound. And then when the pulses hit
like
the object, right, exactly, echo sonar, it comes back. And then they can tell distance, bearing, all of those things based on how the pulse has shifted or changed. You can think of like the Doppler effect. They can calculate all of those things and say, this is where this object is and how far it's going. Anyway, all of that was defeated. But then the second thing that was very interesting was this thing was directly above the water, but it had no type of exhaust or any manifold that was expelling anything from a heat perspective that would show that it was using anything from a conventional propulsion perspective to show that it was like burning a fuel or doing something to remain above the water. It was just an object on IR, which is infrared. It's sensing temperature. Like we use IR in Afghanistan. Like in
I know
Iraq,
what IR is. I run trail cameras.
Yeah, right. Well, in Iraq, they'd be on top of roofs in the middle of the night sleeping because it would be so hot in the summer. So on IR, you could count how many people. We do these things called GRGs. Grid reference guides, where we'd be like monitoring a house. We're about to, go and knock the front door down. We want to know how many people were there. We'd wait till the night to count how many people were sleeping on the roof, because that gave you a good indication of how many people were in the house, because everyone slept on the roof because it's so hot.
Yep.
Well, these IRs, cameras that these planes were using, these jets were using, were not detecting any kind of thermal response on.
So it wasn't giving off any heat.
It was not giving off any heat, which
layman's
is
terms. Okay, thank you.
Crazy. To me, it's just insane to me. So
this is how the conversation started last night, actually, I think.
Yeah.
Because I brought up, Joe and Mike Baker talked about like a power source there was an article posted about it publicly first, about like some sort of car-sized thing that was generating the amount of power that like a massive nuclear power plant would generate. And then all of a sudden it was blacklisted. And I guess what Mike Baker was saying was like CIA or the government blacklist certain things that could potentially be like a threat to the public if the information is twisted and used in ways that it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things.
Sure.
And I was asking if you knew about that and if it was maybe that would explain like some of these I guess coincidences that have happened.
Yeah, and I mean, if another foreign government possessed any of that type of technology, my thought is that we would be speaking their language right now. It's like if the Russians could, exercise that kind of land-air dominance in, off the coast of San Diego or wherever that was, we would be speaking Russian, or we would be learning Russian.
Mm-hmm.
Because
I don't follow, but I don't want to.
In other words, they would be able to conquer us militarily.
Yeah, I get you.
Like, they would be so advanced over what we can do.
That they're going to make us speak Russian?
Well, they'd conquer us and then make us speak Russian. Yeah. They'd be like, hey, we have jets that don't use fuel.
So speak our language or we'll destroy you.
And that move nearly the speed of light.
Essentially, by the time that they're flying that kind of stuff off of our coast, then it's too late.
We're done.
Yeah. We're already speaking
and
Russian.
we're so
That's
woefully
the end game.
outmatched.
They just want people to speak Russian.
Well,
I'm lost. I don't.
they don't want to just make us speak their language.
That's what you.
Okay.
That's the image.
All I'm saying is they would conquer us.
So,
Fair.
let's pivot because you had a different kind of theory.
Yes. So
behind the
anyway,
whole thing.
Tic Tac video. Great. Alien spaceship.
So I'm not
Crazy
sure this
stuff.
is my theory.
Give me your theory conclusions.
This is not my theory. This is, I think I've heard other people say this theory, but it's a theory that I abide by. And if I had to, and now this is not plausible. Okay, so if I had to guess for, if someone said, hey, for $1 billion, what do you think's going on with these aircraft? And now the presupposition is that these videos are real, and this aircraft is doing what it looked like it was doing in these videos.
Right.
So, it could go to 60,000 feet in less than a second, and it had no thermal form of propulsion. If that is the case, my guess would be this is like human beings in like 100,000 years coming back to using UAVs of some sort.
I know about UAVs.
To come back
I play
and
Call of Duty.
Yep, there you go. To come back and look at us.
This
That's
is leading.
my
This is
guess.
leading to my main question of the podcast.
Well, we're
Keep
gonna hold
going.
that. I know where you're
I mean,
going.
that's as far as I'm going on that. It's just my guess would be
You think all right? So you think it's human beings
Future
from
humans.
100,000 years ahead,
or
coming
a long ways from now. Yeah.
coming back to be like, hey, I want to just kind of visit this time.
Well,
era.
also like, hey, this is a tumultuous era. Maybe something really bad happens soon,
and they're trying to change.
and they're
it.
trying to study us or
Yeah.
change it or figure out how we went awry.
Goodness.
AKA Divergent series movies. If you haven't watched,
Yeah,
them.
right.
Okay, all
which
right,
I
so
haven't, also haven't watched, but that's my
yeah,
thought.
you need to.
What if it's like a what if that's like a Disney ride, in 100,000 years from now? It's like time travel back to whatever you want to.
I like that a lot better. I like that a lot better.
But I also think like if you've ever watched Back to the Future, like they could potentially alter the future
Who knows?
if they change some
Or
sort
do
of
they create a
event.
separate timeline?
So all right, but cutting through the BS, you think the most logical conclusion?
My most logical conclusion as a scientist and as a Christian
Totally lost everything.
conclusion as a scientist and as a Christian is these are us in the future.
See,
Flying
man.
Tic Tacs, probably orange flavor.
From the Christian perspective, for me, it's like knowing how infinite space is and how infinite our galaxies are. It just seems like so plausible to me that there's other Earths out there with other life forms that may be 100, 200, 500,000 years in front of us.
Who knows? And you could
Yeah.
be right. Here's what I tend to do, only because, and again, people are going to be like, "Oh, this guy's crazy," but oh well.
No,
I am who I am, and deal with it.
Before you, you're not crazy. I know you as a friend. I think you are a very deep thinker, and you think about things that are certainly plausible, that are not necessarily like on a normal person's
All I said
radar
was if I had
thinking.
to bet the mortgage,
Sure.
like this would be my bet. So when I read the Bible, which I do often, and when I think about it, one of the things that it says in the beginning of the Bible is that Eve is the mother of all living. And so if I take that, right, there's two things I either have to say to myself, right, and I'm not saying Eve as in she is one person and she was in the Garden of Eden and she has all the babies today. That's not what I'm saying. Basically what I'm saying is that the original person, that was here and started everything that we're doing here is the mother of everything that's alive or conscious. And if that's the case, then it seems plausible to me that sometime in the future we're all messed up and someone's trying to come back and figure out kind of where we went wrong. And for me, the multiple worlds thing doesn't work because I've read some authors on this and I've, listened to some stuff, and life is like so mathematically implausible that it's far more likely to me that it's us in the future than it is someone else out there. If that makes sense.
So there's one of the people that kind of inspired my faith was Lee Strobel, and in his book he talks about like the plausibility of life happening on Earth. And one of the I guess analogies he uses is like the odds of a planet forming that is conducive to life existing from just like inert gases floating in nothingness
Yeah.
is like a tornado going through a junkyard and
Building a car.
building a fully functioning 747 airplane.
Right.
Flying off
I mean,
in that thing.
that's not
And that's like
totally wrong.
that's honestly probably an understatement of how just ridiculous the odds are.
I think
of that
I
happening.
think there's things we see every day that we're used to and kind of numb to that we don't really understand, like how freaking crazy like this stuff is. Like the moon above us right now. We can see it, but to me, it's like hard to actually fathom that that's like, you could actually, it's a place.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I saw something that was posted on Instagram like a week ago, and it was like some photographer got like the clearest pictures ever of the sun, and being able to actually like look at the details of the sun. I was like, holy shit, it's just a floating fireball in the air that happens to like perfectly warm the earth.
It's insane.
And it's just like, what? I mean, to me,
Perfect
I'm like,
distance.
what are the odds?
If it's like several miles off of where it is now,
Yeah.
we would all be toast.
there just
And
happens
if
to
it
be
was
this
several
giant
miles the other
fireball.
direction, we'd all be ice.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and actually, related to the sun, that's one of the things that I worry about the most is the appropriate or proper solar flare, and our entire industrial grid is gone. Like just how electromagnetic pulse works, and electricity. So yes, I'm just trying to echo that. This is all so absurd that we're here and alive right now, and that everything works and that the lights are on.
And I think you
It
look at
blows
it
my mind.
from the lens of like, oh, well, that's just total coincidence. Or you look at it from a sense of like purpose, like meaningfulness. Like, oh,
Yeah.
this is not just randomness.
Right.
There's a purpose here. Like there's a creator here, kind of thing. So
It takes more faith to be an atheist than it does to be a Christian.
I think there's a very good case for that.
Yeah. Anyways, moving on.
So yeah, moving on to Goldeneye. So this is going to be I've been waiting to
purpose of
unpack
this
this.
podcast.
I've been waiting to unpack this. This is definitely going to be kind of an age,
man.
limited type of area. This is not going to be for everybody, but it's going to be for a bunch of people that are, within our age group that played in 64.
85 to 93.
93. Oh, birth. Okay,
Yeah,
sorry.
birth.
So
Yeah.
I would take it past 93 because when I was in college, I still played N64 Mario Kart.
Oh, sure.
Religiously.
Yeah, drinking and driving, sure.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. We did make a drinking game out of Mario Kart. I think you played it. I'm sure you played with me.
Sorry.
Free-
I just snorted. Sorry.
Rainbow Road was the
Sorry.
place. In fact, I need to get an N64 because I would crush either of you right now on
Oh,
any
my
of the
goodness.
roads.
The last
my
time you said that, I
goodness.
took you to town.
No.
You,
Rainbow Road, nobody
you-
can beat me.
You
period.
came to the White House and
No.
I destroyed you. You know it.
Rainbow Road, nobody can take me, especially if I'm
Dude.
Toad.
Are you
this
doing
is
shortcut or no shortcut?
I'm taking shortcut. You got to risk it. Jump over the ramp, land on the ramp.
We're doing this.
Anyways, as long as I'm Toad or Peach, nobody's beating me. So
Peach was my jam.
we may lose some, people tuning in.
I
here.
expect us to.
But for those out there that did play N64, there was a game called Goldeneye, and
So
Drew and I, our friendship, a lot of it probably founded on Goldeneye. We used to have heated arguments about who was better. I still argue that I'm better. Drew still argues that he is better. Maybe we film a YouTube video of us just playing Goldeneye against each other.
I'd watch that.
The climax of Seek 1 is
But anyway,
Seek
so
none by the
we
end.
got into
all I'm
this
saying is
argument.
stack power weapons and I get odd job and you're done.
Odd Job's
Wow.
not fair. Everybody,
Well, I
anybody
called
who
him,
has
so
played that game,
And I get one player because I'm pretty sure N64 had bias towards the first player.
well, the first player got the
I
top
think
half of the
someone
screen.
act-
The other
Yeah,
two got like
on-
tiny
on- when
square.
you got
on the
three people
corners.
playing, yeah.
it's the worst. Odd Job's not fair. He's a tiny target. It's kind of like Conor McGregor at 3'6" out there. It's not fair.
Jeez.
We've seriously
You just
digressed.
referenced something that we talked about off.
We're an hour and 21 minutes in and we have got
not talking about.
we have
close
got-
to the point of
We
the
have
podcast.
done nothing. And if you're hanging on right now, you are a true fan.
Yeah, you know what? Major props to the people who are still listening. But anyways, that was kind of a heated debate of topic for last night was who was better at N64 or Goldeneye in particular. Bill was a Goldeneye guy and was very into that era. So
Yeah, I mean, I spent all of my time playing that game.
I mean, all I'm saying is stack power weapons. I'm racing to
RCP
90 and getting body armor, and you are not getting a damn kill.
I will ruin you with proximity mines. I will not even shoot you.
proximity mines were great.
Oh, dude, I will
You throw them on the glass. And shoot the glass.
Yes,
and
Yeah.
all
floating in
over
midair.
the place. Oh, dude.
I remember the grenade launcher was pretty goat too. Just shooting it in the flyer ball, just like.
Y'all ever use cheat codes like DK?
Yeah, I
They're
know
Oh,
extra huge?
absolutely.
Paintball mode.
Yeah,
Yes.
paintball mode was great.
Oh, that's a
I
great
was
game.
actually, I was just brainstorming on this stuff earlier today after our conversation last night, just thinking about the guns. And I was like, okay, so we start out in the stack. Usually you spawn in like that, like the room with all the glass and those like revolving doors. But you're sprinting to the RCP-90.
Speed run is the term.
But what you do is you pick up the clob on the lower level.
Clob was solid.
Or if you're feeling a little bit crazy, you open the secret door, you get the Cougar Magnum in your pocket, which is like a one-shot kill.
Yep.
Or maybe two-shot kill. And then you run up the...
No, the golden gun was one shot. I think the Cougar was maybe a couple.
Probably two.
Yeah. Good gun though.
You
Good
run
gun,
up the
though.
ramp, past the KF-7 Soviet, because the KF-7 Soviet, we all know, is
Pretty
garbage.
trash.
Open the secret door, body armor, RCP-90, and it's game over pretty much.
Yeah. You know what I would kind of like to do? And I don't know if this is possible, but I think it'd be pretty hilarious, is if we went to like a NWTF or like a show or just like the opportunity to play with people that like follow along with our videos or this podcast and just host like a Mario Kart tournament on this. I feel like it would
In the
get
middle of
so
a
heated. Dude,
hunting trade show
I
where
feel
everyone's
like-
like, damn it, these guys
I
are
feel
taking
like
all the
it would-
attention.
it would be a massive crowd. I feel like it would get so heated and people would love it. But moving on. So I think I would be curious to hear what your opinion, because this is your first time in town suburban hunting.
Yeah.
I'm curious to get your thoughts.
Way more difficult than I thought it was going to be.
Really?
Yep.
How so?
I don't know. You guys ought not to take this in offense, but I thought, like, constricted, there would be, smaller tracts of land, less areas that the deer could move with cover, inevitably means it would be easier to target them.
Sure.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because, traditionally, my serious bow hunting years have been spent in the big woods.
Yep.
And I've been relatively successful in the big woods. In the past, 11 or 12 years, I've got 6 or 7, 140 plus deer.
Yeah.
And to me, unless you're a psycho that spends all of your time hunting, which is awesome, and I applaud you, it's difficult to get that caliber of deer on the ground in the big woods situations.
Right.
Basically, I think if you're a really good big woods hunter, you're putting one really big deer down every 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of how I hold myself accountable. Is I expect to be putting down a 140 or a 150 every 2 years, and if I'm not, then maybe I'm doing something wrong. I'm not scouting enough, or whatever. So when I examine the urban situation, my initial thought is there's less cover. The deer are more used to humans, and therefore that should just make this situation easier. And so I think in one respect it is easier in that you will see a ton more, in the past 2 days, I've seen way more deer than I ever expected I would see, but they were all does and young buck, a couple of young bucks and stuff. For instance, I'll say this, Lee is a deer magnet. And what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is I hunted with him in North Dakota. He's surrounded by, 150-inch deer. And in 2 days out there, he almost gets it done. And, people hunt their whole lives in North Dakota and don't see the deer that he saw out there. But then we go to Pennsylvania for the veterans hunt, and we just go to town and buy whiskey. We're going to town and buy whiskey. That's 165-inch deer.
It's a huge deer.
Peeks his head over the bridge and honestly, it looks like somebody's holding up like taxidermy.
Did
it not look like somebody?
Yeah, it looked fake.
It looked like somebody was grabbing like a mounted deer and just holding it over the bridge.
It was a 160-inch deer all day.
Yeah, well, it was because it got hit like 5 days later. Johnny went and saw it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll show you a picture of it. It's
there's
huge.
a picture. It's a great deer. And it was the same deer, and I recognized it. And then Lee is showing me the area where he's like, hey, I think there might be deer in here. I'm not sure. Like, I've seen a good buck in here in the past, and, sit up here, and this is what we'll do. And so we get in there the first day, and we're just putting up a stand for me to come back later in the day. I just flown in. and we're hanging this stand, and I'm sitting there at the bottom of the tree, and I'm like, I wonder how often in these types of situations, Lee sees a big deer, or like a big deer walks up and he's sitting there, because I'm very much used to like the big woods thing where I hang my set when I get to the tree.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Whereas here, I understand why you guys don't do that, because these deer seem to bed in a lot more areas where they're looking directly at where they're vulnerable, or where they might be, the big deer are looking at where they're vulnerable or where the access is. Like, they seem to be akin to that in a way that bigger woods deer are not as much akin to that. At any rate, we're hanging a stand for an afternoon set, and like a 6-point buck walks up and is just staring at us for, I don't know, what felt like 30 seconds at least, right?
Mm-hmm.
And not quite sure if we're like does or what we're doing, or what's going on.
He didn't know what was going on, but you could tell he had a whiff of estrus.
Yeah, there was an estrus deer somewhere near him, because we had walked in and there was a scrape that looked like it had just been hit. And
so we're sitting there kind of quiet. Like, I'm up in the tree, Bill's standing at the base, and this deer just comes like running through
and staring at us.
Like, was like, whoa, and just like stares at us for a second, and then just like goes back to estrus.
Immediately puts his nose to the ground,
and just like
and keeps working.
Nose to
running.
the ground, took off back towards like trying to find clearly this hot doe in that area.
Yeah, and well, one of the reasons I was excited about coming out here is I don't often see on the Spartan Forge app where you have more than maybe 2 or 3 days where it's full range.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's very rare where you see like 4 or 5 days of full range movement. And the app was saying that, and I was like, oh man, I hope this thing is right. Like, because I'm going out here for this, and I'm going to be actually seeing it. I'll be in the middle of it.
Did me killing a buck
and then
Drew,
help you? Yeah, I was just about to say. And then Drew slays this monster
first day of the full
on the
range.
first day of the full range at like 9 a.m. or 9:30 a.m.
Yeah, or 8:30, 9 a.m.
Yeah, and then Lee is sending me all these pictures of these daylight bucks. And he's like, hey, it's on out here. There's deer moving everywhere.
There's deer chasing right now.
Yeah,
sure.
and
this is a secondary rut.
This morning, when we were driving in to the spot where I was sitting this morning, we saw a small buck chasing across the road, like right in front of us, and got into a yard behind us. And we stopped the truck and looked at him, and he was just nose to the ground, like searching everywhere. And then when I get into the stand this morning, at like 8:30, a buck's chasing a doe, and then all of the doe that I saw were all like on pins and needles. Like, they were like, if a squirrel made a noise, they were all looking like they've been getting molested, like just like bothered and not being left alone.
Yeah.
And and so I guess the biggest thing for me was, in these situations, I feel like you see more deer. This is just my 3 days of hunting here. Like yesterday was it yesterday or the day before? I think I had like something like 13 deer or something that I saw. And at one point I had like 9 deer below me.
Mm-hmm.
And none of them were like, deer you'd want to shoot or whatever. But then as soon as I got out of there, there's a mature buck walking in, later. And it's like, obviously he's got my number.
The great question is,
did he know you were
Is
there?
it a coincidence that he came in after you left?
Who knows?
Or did he just
because
happen to
the
come in?
morning we hung those stands, I'm on Lee's camera, and we left, and what was it, like 10 or 15 minutes later?
An hour later, he came walking through.
Oh, was it that long? Was it an hour?
45 minutes.
Yeah, and then there's a massive 10-pointer walking through.
Experience would tell Lee and I that is not coincidence whatsoever.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I tend to agree with you.
Yep.
So my right now, and this could change obviously because I try not to hold anything, everything, nothing is static, everything is dynamic. And so right where I'm at right now, I would say generally if you want to just kill a deer and get meat in the freezer, your odds are probably greater in a place like this.
Sure.
But I think if you want to kill it like a trophy, your odds might actually be a little less than some places where I've hunted, especially like maybe like the Midwest. It might even be even with something like the Northeast. Like in the Midwest, I feel maybe it's because I grew up there. But if you said, hey, Bill Thompson, you need to kill a deer that's 140 inches or more, or you're going to be executed by the end of the year. Put me in North Dakota right now.
So yeah, I would definitely agree with you. Like, because when you're getting into urban areas, like your deer densities are getting higher. There's not enough hunting. There's not enough management that's happening. And when you're targeting a specific animal that's 5.5 or older, those animals, first off, are really hard to find. But second off, their behavior is totally different than a young buck, something like that. And they're just so more finely in tune with their environment. Their behavior that's just in their DNA is that there's a distinct change as they mature, that they become more nocturnal. They become way more cognizant of their movements, what's happening. They're just in tune to survival.
Yeah. They're just in tune with their environment because where we're sitting right now, I have maybe, 10 total acres back behind my house. Pretty thick bedding area. And if there's a mature buck living in that area, if I go walk 15 yards back in there and start cutting stuff down or just turning leaves over, that buck knows that something's different.
Right.
And if that buck is on 1,000 acres on public land somewhere, it may not be that in tune with its environment. Maybe it is with like its little core area, like bedroom area,
where it spends 90%.
But here it's like they have to be that in tune because if not, they're going to get whacked.
Right.
There's plenty of hunting pressure here. There's plenty of other disturbances, dogs, cars, whatever else that could kill these deer.
Well, just like in a couple of days, Lee and I will be driving around, and I think it's another thing and I'm not trying to, wax you guys, but another thing that's really impressive is like Lee's like, oh, there's an illegal camera there, or like we're driving by here, this camera shouldn't be here, or like I think this guy from this house, like the other morning when we went to that place that was kind of like on the, like it was like a knob or something, you're like, oh, there's a camera over here, but I don't think that guy actually hunts here. I think he just put the camera here.
It's on my property that I have.
Yeah, right, exactly.
But I honestly just don't feel like even going down that rabbit hole. Like I just don't, I just don't care. But I mean, I'm never going to take the stance of like, this is harder, hunting public's harder, hunting urban's harder, hunting
it's all
1,000-acre farms harder over food plots, whether you're using a rifle, bow, crop. Like, I literally don't give a rat's ass about how your hunting style is. As long as you're hunting, as long as you're doing it legally, as long as you're doing it ethically, and as long as it means something to you, I do not care about, doing this, doing that. Like, I feel like there's so much criticism about, ooh, this, that. And, like, I think that, if you're a new kid that's getting into hunting, you do something, and you have someone jump, and you put yourself out there, picture whatever it is, someone jumps all over you, like, it kind of takes away, like, I don't want to hunt anymore. Like, I feel like people are so vulnerable these days that, especially when you have, like, a younger demographic getting into it, criticism like that of, like, bashing their style because this kid used a crossbow instead of a compound bow or, like, whatever it is, like, I really don't care. I think the main thing is like that kid's out hunting. It means something to him. He's involved in hunting. He's involved in the community of it. That's the win, not exactly how he took that. Like there's 1,000 different styles of hunting, and I want to celebrate all of them. So whether it's, I do think there are misconceptions about urban because, as you've seen, like once you dive into these places, there's so much ground for these deer to cover. I mean, you look at it on a map, but you really don't understand how much ground is in there until you dive into it, and you're like, holy crap, like
Right.
this finger goes into this block, and I totally see how these deer are moving to this, that, and the other. And these deer, and to your studies of deer collar data, stuff like that, like I would love to somehow do that in an urban environment, because
I need
these
to get
deer
that data.
go for miles.
I don't have, I have data where it's semi-urban, but nothing urban like what we've been hunting.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I can see 12 houses
Yeah.
from my stand. I don't have that kind of data. I definitely want to see what that's like. But, I got pretty good at like Midwestern hunting, like egg farm type of hunting. Agriculture.
Are you saying
And-
ag, or are you saying EGG, egg?
Agriculture. I got really good at, not really good. I was moderately successful. Took some big bucks doing that type of thing. That's kind of where I cut my teeth and learned how to hunt. And then I went out to the East Coast in like Maryland, mountain country, swamps. And I got my butt kicked for like the first 2 years. And then I got pretty good at that as well, where I harvested some, in the last 5 years, some pretty good. For a point there, I was like 4 for 4 on years of killing deer over 140. And got pretty successful at that. And then, so I feel like I have a good like cross section of the Midwest, the Northeast, and now kind of seeing some of the Southeast, although I want to spend more time here. The only real place I really haven't spent a lot of time hunting, where I feel like I want to do it just to say I've done it or see how well I can do, would be like the Florida, like Everglades, or like
that
I
is
wanna do
so
that really
different.
bad.
It's crazy
Yeah.
how different. It's
I kind of want to get down there
wild.
and do that. But the thing I was thinking to myself today, because I was thinking a lot in the tree stand today, just about stuff we've been talking about and like business stuff we've been talking about, but also like hunting and what makes things different. I spent a lot of time in the tree stand thinking about myself today. And the thought I had was, I'm not sure any of it's easier than any else. Like all of it kind of comes with its challenges, and all of them are different. There might be phases of the season where certain things are easier. Like I definitely think the best time to hunt mountain bucks, like Pennsylvania, where and Western Maryland, where I cut my teeth for years, is definitely the rut. Like early season, it's either you're on them or you're not. And most times you're not on them.
See, I would say the rut is honestly pretty challenging in an urban environment.
Yeah, for sure. They're just so
Unless you're
unpredictable.
looking to just get lucky.
Yeah, and so in like mountain buck country, I would say that's where you've got the most choices, the most chances, because there are so many
It's
fingers,
such
and
a
there's
big
so many
territory.
places.
Yeah.
But what they have to do is, because they're spread out, the does are spread out, and therefore they have to travel. And if you can find out where they're traveling, or just kind of find out like topographically how they're going to cut some corners, then you can see some deer in a day, and you can be successful. Whereas I can see how here that would be an impossibility. It could become very difficult very quick, because they don't have to abide by all the rules that they have to do in big deer country. But to me, it seems like kind of like North Dakota. If I had to if you said, hey, Bill, you need to kill like a massive deer, and you get to pick your time of year and your method, I would say, and people aren't going to like this, and it's not going to sound romantic or awesome or anything like that, but it's going to be the truth, because it's the only thing I'm going to speak, is I would say late season North Dakota over corn.
Yeah. Yeah.
If someone
Just
was
'cause they're
like,
just
you
so
have to
dependent on
kill a
food.
big
100%.
buck. You have to kill a big buck, Bill. Like, your life depends on it. What are you going to do?
I would say the same thing
I
here.
would say, give me a pile of corn in agriculture country in like the Red River Valley of North Dakota, and I'll get you 150, 160 inch deer. Because they're going to find it.
I would say very, very early season, first 2 weeks of the season here.
Yeah, and that's so interesting.
You pattern them on protein, or you pattern them on a early season food source like kudzu or acorns or something like that.
Yeah.
And you pray to God that like your buck that you're trying to kill does not change its pattern.
So it sounds to me like we have a good heuristic here.
Or late season meaning after January 15th to January 31st. You get them on corn when their guard's down, and they're relying on that corn,
Right.
and they start daylighting.
Yeah.
because they have no other option.
Yes, corn, but also like you have to find them in their cover. Like you got to be in the right place.
The corn has to be in the place
you
where
can't
everything
just go
else is
throw it
perfect.
in a place.
Yeah.
They have to be there, and that's
Right.
like privet. They live in privet late season,
And then
that is like the biggest thing for them. It's a massive food source for them, but it's also all the cover they ever need. There's privet all in the place that we're hunting. Like all the places
where I just killed my buck was
privet.
Straight privet.
And
that deer has not been in there the last 3 months.
He just showed up.
Showed up.
We actually got a comment, and so here's a podcast idea I want to do is I want to start screenshotting. I've already screenshotted a couple comments that would spark some debate, maybe some hater comments, if you want to call it that. Like we've been accused of helicoptering in deer from Texas.
Dude,
like
there was just a comment on that.
true.
There was just a comment on
it's
that
a
video
thing
that
now.
you had.
Yeah,
I don't know if was it a joke?
It was a joke, yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
it's a joke thing now
But I read it and I was like, wait, what?
because I screenshotted one and posted it on our Instagram, and it's like it's unbelievable that people actually believe. Like this dude genuinely believed that we were helicoptering in deer from high fences in Ohio or Texas or like wherever.
So much so
bringing them
that
back into
people
Atlanta.
called the game wardens and reported that that's what we were doing.
So I think we unpack that in a whole different podcast. I think that'd be a really good podcast to do.
That'd be great.
Screenshot comments like that and just start read the comments, address them, kind of go through all that. That's a whole different podcast in and of itself. But I have no idea where I was going with that. What was I talking about?
Bill looks like he's in search.
Oh, anyway, so
Oh, good. Thank God.
privet late season.
Yeah, and I just learned about privet.
If you find the privet, man, it's like these late season honey holes are paying off
There
for
it
us.
is.
Yeah, and it's like so there's a big transition right now from that these deer are going through where they're transitioning into these privet areas, and if you find privet and all this cover, like there is going to be deer in there, I promise you. So that's to your point of like, your highest odds of killing a buck.
Yeah.
The last couple weeks of the season here in privet over feed is one of the best times.
Yeah,
sure.
I mean, knowing what I know now about deer, which I've hunted deer in a bunch of places, I've been moderately successful in a couple. Here's how I do my season. I do like August 31st to September 15th in North Dakota. I would do September 15th to like November 1st in the southeast here. And then I do November 1st to probably December 1st in Pennsylvania. And then I do December 1st, January 31st back down here.
Yeah.
Like that would be I think next year I'm going to try to do it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can really get on some really good early season velvet bucks in North Dakota. When they're
I had 150, 60-inch 8-pointer in front of me this
exactly.
season. And I would have loved to have given that deer the beans, but he smelled me.
Yeah.
Wins world, I mean.
I just showed my buddy of that video the other night. And I was
my gosh, that deer is so big.
Oh, it's great.
But anyways, we got one more hunt for you tomorrow.
Yep. I'm going.
Oh my God!
Oh God!
A log just exploded.
Sniped.
And I hope they hear that. And, it just like went straight for Drew's crotch,
right on his beans.
right on the beans.
Gave me the beans.
So you got one more hunt tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna kill a doe tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
I'm not leaving. I'm not gonna pay this $200 and some bucks for a license out here and not have some back straps.
Yeah.
Can we? So if I kill a deer at like 10 tomorrow. Can we throw some back straps in a cooler and I can fly back with them? Or
I don't know. Yeah, I think so.
Can we do that?
I don't know why not.
Okay, just making sure. Otherwise, we'll just freeze them. I'll eat them when I come back later this year.
Well, hopefully that buck.
Or if we meet up for our Spartan Forge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Hopefully
that buck makes a mistake tomorrow, but if not, definitely give a doe the beans.
I'm 60% sure that he has me pegged.
Potentially.
That's it right there for the urban hunting thing. Like the deer that I've been hunting since November on one of Lee's spots. Thank you, Lee, for putting me on the deer.
You're welcome, brother.
And thank you, Lee, for putting me on the deer.
You also welcome, brother.
The deer showed up.
We have to talk about the bet after this. We can't tell him what was bet, but
we'll close this podcast with the bet.
Yeah, but we can give him a gravity.
So this is like a perfect painting a perfect picture of the urban hunting scene for mature bucks. I've had a camera out at one of Lee's spots for the last 2 months. The deer was in there like all summer up until probably second, third week of September. Completely disappeared. Finally came back about 2 weeks ago, and I hunted him one time and then had to go out of town for just the weekend, 2 days, 2.5 days. The deer daylighted 5 times while I was gone.
In 3 days, right?
In 3 days. Like, not even close to like dawn and dusk, just like 9:30, 4:30, just like super, just like in your face. Hey, I'm over here. I know you're out of town. I know you're not here. So as soon as I get back in town, I already had my stand set up, go in there, start hunting him. And this spot it's essentially like a really tall, long hill leading up to a hardwood ridge. And I hunt the deer one time, and then I never see the deer on camera again. It's been 2.5 weeks, I think, since he was in there in daylight, or in there at all, honestly. He's not come back once. But we have a buddy that has a spot
one street across,
literally right across this neighborhood road, 300 yards. I can see his feeder from my stand. And that deer is showing up over there like at night. He actually showed up this morning at like 7:30. But
oh my,
that is just like proof that these older deer bed in spots that they can see your access.
And it may have been one experience where he caught you.
I guarantee you, the very first time I went in there, he had been daylighting. He knew the feed was in there. He was bedding within sight of the feed, but far enough away to where if he saw me and left, I would not see him leave. So he was up on top of the ridge, saw me walk in around this house, which is the only way I can go in because the spot's only 2 acres. And he probably saw me, eased off the top of the ridge to where I couldn't even see him. And now he's just never coming in because he
logged that.
He knows his compromises, and now he's just going over to the other spot. He's like, yeah, that guy's tagged out, I know. Because he's obviously not in there anymore. More of the story is like, never underestimate the intelligence of these animals.
Yeah.
Especially in older deer.
It's unreal.
Yeah. It's
beyond what you could dream up that these animals could think and understand and observe.
And that's where so much of my respect comes from for them. Like, if it was easy, it would just be another thing.
And
like
everyone would do it.
The emotion wouldn't be there. It just would be like, but it's that challenge of like, your opponent is a worthy adversary. And once it happens, like my reactions when I kill a deer, like I look like an idiot a lot of the time. And it's just because my emotions pour out in that just moment after it happens, because there's so much that's been poured into that to have it happen. Like, it all comes out. And if it were not a challenge, if it were just like easy, it wouldn't be that way. Like, I mean, none of us would have that burning passion to hunt this way if it was easy. Like, it just would get boring at some point where I just don't care anymore. But it's always a challenge, and it's that challenge that's so addicting of like figuring that animal out, outsmarting him, beating him, that is just like that driving force, that addiction behind all of it. And that's, to me, like my burning passion about it is like figuring out each animal, because they're all unique, they're all individual, they're all very different. They've come from different environments, they've had different life experiences, and like finding out what he's doing, how to approach it and be successful at it, hopefully, is like the addiction personally that I have, and I know that we have, for like chasing these animals in this environment. And I know that if I was born in North Dakota, my passion would be the exact same as it would be out there. I'd be chasing deer in that environment out there, but we happen to be born here, and so we were kind of maximizing the cards we were dealt. So, yeah, I think that I don't even know how long we're into this.
We got into deer,
a lot of
Hour
directions.
54.
I'm so happy that we got into deer.
Go into deer at some point.
Let's get into the app.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we close touching base on the app because you are what I would refer to, and I think many people are starting to refer to you as like the Elon Musk of deer. I think it's
don't know
a
about all
very
that.
fair metaphor or analogy.
Yeah, I like
nickname.
to think that I'm Elon Musking deer. He's become like, it's a verb.
But this was our first year trying out your app, and I think something that's really important to Drew and I is that we have never jumped into bed with like a sponsor or a company to work with, a partnership that was not fully vetted by us. Like we would never have a partnership with a company that was not natural for us, that didn't make sense, that was not something we fully believed in, that we were like, we've never chased dollars from sponsors. It's like, hey, this is who we want to work with. Let's try and make that work because this is what we believe in. We're not going to fake, oh, this is the best trail camera out there because they're paying us the best dollar amount. In fact, there was a trail camera company this past summer that threw a very significant amount of dollars at us, but we didn't like their trail cameras, and so we didn't take the deal, and we are still trail camera sponsorless right now, and we're using all these trail cameras to be like, figure out exactly which one we want to use. My point in saying that is that like we getting involved with you, like we put your app to the test this year hard. And I'm not saying this as like I'm just trying to, be nice to you or like,
Which you don't need to be.
No, I don't. Like we're at that type of relationship where I'll give you a hard time, but like what you've built really works. Like it's truly is effective. And the deer I killed Sig this year, I knew exactly where his core area was, and your predictions that you built from this GPS collared deer data was accurate, and that when it was a core area prediction, I was seeing him in his core area, and when it was transition or full range, I was seeing him in these other places where he was kind of his rut range is what I would call it. So
yeah, like 60% of our data is from the Southeast.
Right.
And it's just, and again, I don't know if I said it to you guys or who I said it to. Maybe it was another Southeast podcast. But I will say, dealing with academics from the Southeast is by and large a far more enjoyable experience than dealing with academics anywhere else in the U.S.
Really?
Oh, by a long shot. Like the guys from no, hell no. The dudes from
because I graduated from Alabama, which in the South is like Harvard.
That's awesome. No, from Texas to Oklahoma to Auburn to Florida to North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, all the academics I've dealt in those areas where I've gotten deer data from them, it's been like, yeah, no problem. Like, do it. Go for it. Like, you want to mess with our data? We used it for what we needed it for. We got it by taxpayer money. Like, go for it. Whereas when I'm trying to deal with like Minnesota or I'm dealing with Ohio, they look at that data, and I understand why, but they look at it as more like a commodity because up in Minnesota and Ohio and Illinois, people go there as like a destination deer hunting place. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And not knowing that there are 200-inch deer down here, really, which was a bit of like an awakening for me. Because if you would have asked me like 5 years ago, are there 220-inch deer, running around the suburbs of Atlanta, I'd be like, no, that's dumb. No, they got to be in corn country. They need to be in a cornfield somewhere in southern Illinois or northeastern North Dakota. Up there, they look at it much more as a commodity that needs to be protected, and they're a lot less apt to share it with people.
But I think that's what's cool about what you built is that it is very area specific in that, like, if I'm hunting Georgia, it's giving me information based off of Georgia deer.
Yeah,
if I'm hunting Pennsylvania, it's giving me information based off of Pennsylvania deer.
Yep.
So it's very area specific, which I think is very cool and unique as opposed to just kind of other stuff.
And they're very different types of animals.
100%.
Like what gets a deer on its feet in Pennsylvania is not what gets a deer on its feet in freaking South Georgia. Yeah. It's just like, or North Georgia. It's just two different things.
Yeah.
It couldn't be more different.
That's honestly a perfect segue into the main question I wanted to ask you in this podcast, and it kind of calls out like the competition a little bit, which is something that maybe you want to skirt around a little bit, but at the same time, like you have to hit it head on because it's what makes Spartan Forge different.
Yeah.
Is what is different about your prediction versus a HuntWise or an Onyx or a DeerCast prediction? Like, why is the AI, the GPS color deer data different than like a human observation data model?
Yeah.
Different.
That's a good question. I mean, mainly it would be like, I should have thought about this before he asked the question, like, so I could have a proper analogy because I'm cooking up one in my head right now as I buy time with talking.
Repeat the question multiple times.
Yeah, repeat the question. No, but I guess the best way to think about it would be if I were trying to I just thought of it. So here we go. If I were trying to think about, say I live with Lee, and I'm trying to understand how Lee.
I'm sorry.
Right. I'm trying to understand how
You
Lee.
would be so honored.
I'm trying to understand how Lee. I've been living with him for the past 3 days.
My house is like a frat house.
It's awesome.
People come and go, and it's just
Here's
I
the
never
thoughts
know who's
about Lee's
there.
houses. He's got a TV up above his fireplace, and then you sit at the couch. You have a TV 6 inches in front of your face.
What's
like Call of Duty.
What's your gamer tag?
I can't say that.
Yeah. So anyway,
Mildly inappropriate.
say you live with Lee, and you want to find out what gets Lee covering more, because what the app's doing is it's predicting when deer are covering more ground, and then specifically during daylight hours. Okay. So now let's just take deer away, and let's just try to make this about the human experience, so that everyone who's listening can understand. Say I wanted to understand what makes Lee travel more during the day than he normally would. If I were to use like a user observation model, which is like a DeerCast or what a HuntWise, like they are coming up with these user expert models based on what they're seeing in the field. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
If I were to do that, I would say, okay, well, I'm going to come up with a Lee model of what makes Lee move most, and I'm going to base it on what I'm seeing inside of his house. That is a cross section of time. Okay. And then I'm going to base my whole Lee model on what's happening in the house. Okay? And that's like a hunter's thing. I'm going to base my deer model based on what I'm seeing when I'm hunting during daylight hours, or I'm hunting from 6 to 9 or 10 a.m., and then from 2 to 5 p.m. And mind you, while I'm hunting, I'm looking at my phone. I'm not looking in the right area.
You're also potentially altering deer movement by your scent,
my
your
scent,
access.
Yes, all of that. I'm not seeing behind the leaves when the leaves haven't fallen. There could be deer back there moving. They could be making scrapes where I don't see them. I'm on a stand. Like I've got, 320 degrees of field of view for 40 yards if I'm in the right area. And who knows what's happening at 60 yards? Who knows what's happening at the field over? Who knows what's happening at the creek behind me? Nobody knows. And it's kind of like that same thing. It's like I'm in the house with Lee, and I'm trying to build a Lee model based on just being in the house. Well, what happens when he leaves the house? What happens when he goes to meet his girlfriend? What happens when he goes to the club? What happens when he goes to the gym? What happens when he goes to school or
To the club.
Did I just sound like an old man there?
Kinda.
Yeah, it's a really old man thing to say. But anyway, I'm using observational data based on like my small set in time. Well, how would we get rid of that? How would we remove that bias, that visual bias data, that small sector of data? I would put a GPS sensor on Lee, and then I would actually
kind of to the point of like human observation. If I knew you were sitting there watching me, I would probably alter what I was doing.
Right, exactly, precisely.
Same if somebody's in a tree stand watching
And
deer.
not only
it's gonna
that,
alter the
but
deer.
it's now you have to question. It's like, okay, how does Lee move in South Georgia or North Georgia versus Pennsylvania? How is he used to 29 degrees up there all day long, where it's minus 15 maybe in the morning and it's 29 for the high, versus down here where it's 60 for the high and 29 in the morning? How is that going to affect him? Mm-hmm. Well, if I'm only down here with him, I only know what it's like down here with him.
Yeah.
So if I'm these guys developing these models based on user visual input, I've only got it for that part of the country.
Yeah.
And the GPS data from collaring these deer and following them all the time shows that they might as, I've said it before and I'll say it again, it's kind of frustrating for people, but it's the truth. They might as well be different species of animals.
Yeah.
Like what a deer does in North Dakota versus Pennsylvania versus Georgia. If you were to just measure what they do in relation to the temperature and the moon phase and the time of year and proximity to the rut and
Totally
cloud
different.
cover, it's not even close to the same.
So what you're saying is, if I had a bunch of farms in Iowa and Ohio and Illinois, and I made these inferences on these deer based on certain weather conditions, and tried to apply them across the entire country.
Yeah, it would be like saying, I want to understand the rhinoceros. Okay, well, there's two. Do you want the guy who's going to go put a GPS collar on a rhinoceros in Africa? Or do you want to see the guy who's going to go observe him in the zoo?
Mm-hmm.
Who are you going to learn more from?
Yeah.
Obviously, the guy out in Africa that's collaring them and letting them run around unencumbered all year long versus the guy who's just looking at them in the zoo.
Yeah.
And it's just, the thing about the zoo is it doesn't translate. The pressure is different. It's
So these last few, or I guess last week, it said full range pretty much across the board. What conditions are playing into that you think are causing these deer to be full range?
I mean, a multitude of conditions. I think one of them would be the wind's been very variable. Like when we've been getting up in the morning, we've been dealing with like a north to northeast wind. Mm-hmm. And then by the end of the day, it's a south to southwest wind. And I'm kind of letting a secret out the door right now. But when you're talking about targeting mature animals, one of the best predictors for mature animal movement throughout the day is wind variability.
Does that play into the amount of range they have, or they
have to shift
the normal versus abnormal pattern of their movement?
Well, it doesn't necessarily. I'm not a neural network, so I can't talk about the pattern piece. What I can do is talk about how it affects the amount of ground they literally travel in the day. And what I can say is, the more degrees of wind shift you have throughout the day, the more movement you're going to see throughout the day. Because the smart buck, the 170-inch deer that you guys are, targeting out here, or even 200-inch deer that you guys are tracking out here, I'm sorry.
Are using that wind to their
Yeah.
advantage.
They're moving with the wind.
That wind moves from an east to a southeast, or from a southeast to a northwest, they are not going to stay.
Yeah.
Where that, if they are bedding in the morning and they're getting a southeast wind, they don't have a forecast. They are betting for that southeast wind. If it starts to adjust to like a northwest wind, it is ubiquitous. And I shouldn't say that word. It's across
I'm glad you said you shouldn't say that word, because I don't know what that means.
Across all mature deer, it is solid. The data is solid.
I do understand solid.
If a mature deer, whether he's on a point in Pennsylvania, a field in North Dakota, or the backyard in Atlanta, when it's a 160-inch, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old deer, when the wind is shifting from a southeast at 6 a.m. to a northwest at 4 p.m., he is going to move every time that wind shifts. Mm-hmm. He will never not bed in an area where the wind does not serve him.
They're working. Yeah. So they're putting themselves in a better position based on the wind
to observe. And so when you have these weather prediction systems like these other ones that we talked about, they'll be like, oh, pressure's rising and temperature's dropping. There's going to be movement. No, not if it's a north wind all day, because they know where they needed to bed for that north wind. And unless there's a hot doe that comes by them that drags them along or makes them move because there's a doe, they have zero reason to move during that north wind when it's cold, because they've already been aggregating the fat all year long. It's not until like the 4th, 5th, or 6th day of that unseasonably cold weather that they will start moving and feeding during daylight hours, because they have been aggregating and consuming enough fat stores to keep them across the board with GPS data on collared deer. The first 2 or 3 days of like extremely cold weather is spent on the belly. They will try to wait it out because they've been gathering fat all year long. So like if it's out here in like Georgia, and I see this throughout the Southeast, when it's like high 60, low 40, high 60, low 40, high 60, low 40, and then you get a day where it's like high 38, low 21, zero movement for bucks on that first day. Almost nothing for mature bucks. Because all they'll do is say, this isn't normal. I don't like this. I'm not used to this.
Yeah.
I've got fat. I'm going to wait a day.
Yeah.
And then 9 times out of 10, the next day, it's back to 60 and 40 or whatever it was. Mm-hmm. So for them, that's chaos, and they don't want to deal with it. They'd just rather wait it out on their stomach. But then when you start getting into the 3rd, 4th day of that cold front, then you'll see just like a freaking tick of movement. Because now it's like, oh, I'm getting short on
Which
fat.
is kind of what we're dealing with now, because it's been warm.
Right.
And now this whole week has been colder. There's been a hard shift of that.
Yeah.
Where it's consistent cold days in a row. I mean, we're sitting around a campfire right now. It's got to be 40 degrees. I'm in Crocs. I'm cold in shorts. But I don't know. Like seeing that data, you having access to that data, like, and it goes back to the conversation we had earlier, like being a sponge. I'm picking up things you're talking about now. I'm learning from what you're talking about because you have dug into this data.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to soak it up.
Yeah.
And what you've created with the app basically hands that information over on a platter.
Yeah, and when I see that in the data, people will be like, I've had messages where it's like, I don't get it. Tomorrow it's going to be the coldest day of the year, and the pressure is going to be the highest it's been all year, and your movement is saying core area. And I'll be like, okay, so did you hunt that day, and what did you see? And he's like, I saw nothing. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, precisely. Yeah. And here's why. Because that buck is just saying, this is all weird and new, and my hope is I've aggregated enough fat that I can just sit this day out and wait for the next day.
Yeah.
And why wouldn't you? If you're a mature old buck, right, and you're like, wow, every time the temperature goes down, the pressure goes up, I see hunters everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about...
But when it drives those does into heat...
Well, doe being in heat is a totally different story.
Different ballgame.
Yeah, totally different. Yep.
What
absolutely.
about low clouds, storms moving in?
Yeah, clouds have a lot to do with the moon and variability and visibility at night. That's where I see clouds really get
because one of the main factors that Lee and I play into is low clouds. A day that is cooler than normal.
Rain.
When a front has come through, it's been rainy. Clouds are still low.
Rain does it.
But like not so much rain that it's like you get soaked when you go out, but just a little bit to where it's like it's miserable, but you're not getting soaked.
I killed Sig.
That's why I love talking to guys like you and like Johnny Stewart or Bo, is because you guys will say shit like that, and I'll be like, precisely, because, and I've said this before, and people, if you like, I was on the Southern Outdoorsman, I think it's called, podcast. And I said the same thing. If I lived in the Southeast and I was getting a light rain,
you better be in the damn woods all day damn long.
You just nailed it on the head.
You better.
They are freaking moving all the time. And I actually think it has, like I trained dogs growing up. Well, not trained. I worked with dogs growing up for like pheasants and shed antler hunting. And then I trained my own dog when I was
how to shoot
in Maryland. How to shoot. Another inside joke. On shed antler hunting, and he's been in place. We go to Green Ridge State Forest, and he'll find 15 antlers in the afternoon. He's just a psycho when it comes to shed antler hunting. He does his best work in light rain. When there's like a light tint, like a from a mist to like a light pour. Mm-hmm. Like it's not pouring. It's just.
Why do you think that is?
Like perfect football weather. I think so. I actually talked to Garrett Prawl about this, the DIY sportsman, and he had found some studies or had read something where, like blood trackers, I believe it was Garrett, but it was blood tracker dogs that worked for like the FBI and other places had found the same thing, that their dogs could track better in like a light rain. And what they thought it was...
like the humidity in the air?
Well, yeah, it was the moisture in the air held the smell and it stayed longer.
And so they feel safer because they can smell better, so they're moving more.
Yeah, and they're picking up more, and it's preserving the scent.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of like in the air and it's not going anywhere. Whereas if you just get like either it's dry, right? When it's super dry, the scent's not staying there for very long.
Mm-hmm.
It's just evaporating. It's going away. Or when it's super wet, it's getting washed away.
Yeah.
But when it's like that in
It's
between,
just hanging in
it's
the
just
air.
hanging there. Exactly. And I saw that precisely with my short-haired pointer when I would wait for like my favorite days to go shed antler hunting with him would be when there's like a light mist or a rain or something like that, and he would just go nuts.
Man, if it's raining here and then it's a break in the rain, you better get your ass in the tree.
I mean,
Yeah.
it was just like 2 days ago with me.
Yeah.
That deer showed up. I put the camera out. Deer showed up the next morning. A front came through. Rain all day. Temperature dropped. And I was like, it was supposed to be a nasty storm until like 6 o'clock. But the storm moved out by like 3:30. And I was like, I got to get in. So I drove over there, got stuck in traffic. Got there at like 3:45. Walked around the side of the house. And as I was walking in, I saw the buck coming down the trail. Like I was literally 30 yards from the blind. Buck starts walking down the trail in this like light mist rain, and I have to stop and just watch this buck feed in front of the blind for about 3 minutes and just keep going. And it's like those kind of days.
Torture.
Any other day where it's like good, like bluebird skies, like that deer's not moving until right before dark. But a
Right.
day like that where as soon as that front moves through, the winds stop, they're getting on their feet and they're moving.
I think they also want to advertise their dominance by hitting scrapes too after they get washed
Freshen
out.
them up.
Mm-hmm.
Freshen them out and be
Yeah.
like, oh, I can hit this one first.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with
Because
that.
I also
Sure.
see that for sure in the southeast, is that there'll be areas where these academics are tracking where these perennial or like these community scrapes are. They're getting worked every year. Bucks will try to hit those things quick after
So
like a harsh
that's
rain.
probably a really big tip right there is hunt a scrape. You know where a dominant scrape line is. Hunt that scrape line right after rain.
Or if you know where a big community scrape is, like those
Yeah.
car hood scrapes, hit those right after a rain.
Yep.
Because it's just like they know all of the deer are around there. I'm assuming. I don't know this because the deer don't respond to the questionnaires. So I'm not.
They don't?
I don't know. They don't. So, but I assume that it's like, oh, I can go get my scent there, and if Betsy and Wilma get by there, they're gonna smell me right away and then come find me, or they know where I'm bedded or whatever. Like they're trying to get there to advertise first. They're trying to be first to market.
You know what's interesting? You mentioning the deer filling out a survey or whatever. They actually, we did it. Drew and I did a video early this summer on canine. We had a police officer that had a trained canine, and he came out and helped us do our best with a scent control video. And he told us that the police force actually tried to train deer to smell like drugs, bombs, that kind
awesome.
of paraphernalia. I was blown away. I was like, they, for real, tried to train a freaking deer
That's awesome.
to walk around and be like alert to a bomb or whatever.
That's awesome. Though.
So I thought that was pretty wild. But I think that we're probably getting down to it here, boys. I feel like that was a lot of. I feel like the first part of this podcast was all over the place. Talked nothing about hunting.
And we kind of brought it home.
Yeah, I hope it was entertaining. I do feel like the end here, we kind of jumped into some valuable information for sure. And,
I will say before we jump off here that if you have users or listeners that are using the app, I should say, that we're going to be adding some mapping that I think is
there's a big
going to
update.
destroy anything else that's out there. And if they want to get on now and they're listening and they're this far in, I guess this is our way of kind of like, paying it forward. Because I'll have to raise the price somewhat when we integrate this mapping. But if they want to get on before then, they can get, a cheaper price for the year. But this mapping is going to blow everybody away. It's
That's what's cool is like this is just the beginning. Like
dude.
you're continuing to evolve this thing, and
we're 6 or 7 months in, and like people will message and be like, "Oh, well, you don't have this thing that Onyx has," and it's like, yeah, Onyx has been around for 10 years. I'm gonna have everything that Onyx has by next summer.
Yeah, and that's what I think is cool. Is that like what you're capable of is, without a doubt, this is gonna be the next level. Kind of already is the next level of, mapping / predictability apps that are helping hunters hopefully become more successful. And
just minimize the amount of time they have to spend away from mama.
Yeah.
Or if it's mama hunting away from papa or the kids or whoever.
Right. So anything that we can do to help is, important. And
get more people hunting.
100%.
Because, I was just reading on your guys' YouTube comments the other night. Like someone said something like, you guys don't want more people hunting. It's like, we all want more people hunting. That's the only way this culture survives.
We can't dive into that. That's for the next podcast.
Oh, well, I won't be on that one. So I'm going to talk about it right now.
You might be.
All I'm saying is, people always ask me, like, why am I doing this or what am I doing? And it's like, I'm having a hell of a time getting my son into hunting right now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's all I do is hunt. It's all I think about. He comes in the morning, he brings me a coffee in the morning. I'm sitting at the computer, I'm coding, or I'm talking to someone, or I'm evaluating stuff with you guys and coming up with the next new idea. And he's watching me do this, and I'm like, hey, let's go out and, kill a doe tonight. He's like, I'm not doing that. But he'll be all over TikTok or, which I've outlawed for him now. Or he'll be, trying to do sports. Sports is that's fine, whatever. But I can't get him into hunting. And it's like, if we are not getting people interested and not recognizing that the smartphone is the next space for the interaction of messaging and information sharing, and that this is where we need to pull the next generation into to get them interested in hunting, we're just going to miss it all. And we're going to have people who aren't voting for hunting. They're not voting for public lands. And they're not tolerant of people to come and hunt on their properties. So it's going to be more impossible for you guys to get access. It's going to be more impossible for people like Bo or Johnny to get access up in northeastern Pennsylvania, or to have public lands that aren't going to be sold out by the government. And then we're all going to be screwed.
Yeah.
And the deer suffer because they overfeed, they get overpopulated, and they
lose funding.
Yeah, and so we need as many people hunting and as interested and donating and participating as possible. And anyone who thinks the other, it's denial.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I see, and I'm not. I know you guys would never do it in a million years because you're very understanding of the demographic of people who are watching what you're doing. But when I read those hater comments where people are shitting on what you guys are doing or saying you guys don't want more people or whatever, it's like if they could spend 2 months watching how many people you guys are trying to get interested, bringing other people out, putting them in your spots, sharing your guys' love for the outdoors. And it's obvious from my perspective that you guys are trying to get more people involved. And those people are just, it's far easier to cut someone down who's doing something that you wish you could do instead of going out there and actually doing it.
Mm.
And I hope if those people are listening, they just decide to go out there and knock on some doors and try to hunt some, some urban land or agriculture land or egg land or whatever.
Egg.
And that they just go out there and put themselves on the line and they try to do something. And then, it could be that, uncle down the road or this old grandmother or someone who's got some land, maybe, 20 acres, and they let you get on it. And there's been a deer back there who's been, living high on the hog.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And he's 7, 8 years old. And maybe it's his time. And hopefully you guys inspire them to go out there and do these things.
Very well said. Very well said, Bill.
Instead of
but I would
crapping on what you guys are doing.
Well, to bring this full circle, very well said. But to bring this full circle, how in the world could you trust a guy to correctly pronunciate the word niche when he pronounces ag like egg?
I don't know.
That's all I have to say about that. I just think that
I also say Could you get me a grocery bag
Big.
instead of a grocery bag?
So anyways,
which sounds weird to me.
I want to.
referring to your pronunciation skills, I don't think you were a good reference for that.
Probably not.
I want to touch on what's next with the app and kind of the features that are coming down the road. I don't know how many things you want to give away because A, competition might try to knock it off. B,
Yeah,
still
I'm pretty
we don't want people
confident that the competition won't knock it off because I've talked to their developers.
yeah. But
But they might
let me
try to
just say
fake it.
this.
They might try to fake it.
You have the deer prediction stuff.
Yep.
It's incredible. We've built some of the mapping portions of the app. It's awesome. But some of the
Better.
things that we're talking about and the ideas
Yeah.
that you have that are more they're more than ideas. They're getting coded as we speak.
Yep.
Are by themselves each game changers.
Yeah, I think so. So we have right now we have about 20. I think the number is 23% of the U.S. we have right now that are in extremely high definition, and most of it's focused around cities.
Mm-hmm.
And we've tasked this company to go out and get stuff that's more urban, more
Rural.
focused, and public hunting spots and those types of things. The Allegheny State Forest, we're going to be flying over this summer, where they're going to be getting
Flying with airplanes and not
with
satellites.
airplanes and not satellites, exactly, and getting really high resolution imagery.
To where you can literally measure the spread on a buck if it's out in the field.
Yes, or you can measure how tall a tree is, or you can. And then the other thing we're doing too is, in about 3 weeks, you're going to be able to highlight a spot on the ground, like where we're sitting right now, and you're going to be able to see it from the north, from the east, from the south, and the west. So you'll be able to switch the map, and you'll be able to look at it from different angles. So a lot of people don't know that, or even that technology is available, but that'll be out there very soon. And we're going to go from about 23% to about 45% of the U.S. is going to be in this high resolution mapping, very high resolution mapping. And we're going to define some areas over the summer, and we're going to try to get to by the end of the summer, I hope to be at 47, 48%. Doesn't sound like a big jump, but that's a ton of land. Mm-hmm. That's, hundreds of thousands of square kilometers of land. That's the first thing we're going to do. Then we also have some scouting features that are essentially going to show people hey, in this area, it's essentially what you'll do is you'll highlight where you hunt, and then the application will be hey, focus on these areas, go drop some cameras in these areas. And again, the focus of the app is not to give you the answers, it's to give you ideas, and just to kind of allow you to be more prudent with your time. Because a lot of our hunters, they have between 3 and 7 vacation days a year. Mm-hmm. Why wouldn't you want an application that's going to try to leverage all of that scientific consensus to try to show you the best places that you should be, or the best times you should be there, to optimize your time? Because whether it's you're putting meat on the table, or you're enjoying time with your son or your daughter, or you're just trying to get out and disconnect from life and just be in nature and enjoy yourself and be productive while out there, that's what we're trying to do with the application, and not waste people's time. And then we just had an update today where I think we perfected the measuring tools, and I think the way that we do measuring is a lot better than how the other companies do measuring. We have high contrast GPS waypoints that I think really look nice, that'll be added to the map here in the next few days. We have this where feature for scouting that I just talked about. And then the last thing, I think there's 2 last things that are worth mentioning, is I'm testing it right now, but we have some really good interaction on how you can mark properties where you have access. So I guess a use case would be, say you guys go to a house, you knock on a door and you ask for access and they say no. You would mark on the application, you'd say this is red. This is an area we don't have access to because these people have explicitly said, not only no, but F no. You can't hunt this property. Mm-hmm. So you mark it red. And then say a quarter later, 3 months later, they sell that property. You will then get a notification, and that property will turn purple and say you need to go back there and ask for that access again, mm-hmm. because someone else is there now. Someone else owns that property. But then it also allows you to track all the properties where you've sought access, because if people take you guys seriously and what you're doing seriously, you're knocking on doors, 1, 2, or 3 times.
Yeah.
Like, you're not just the first time. You might have to build a relationship with someone or go back a couple of times or, demand a no instead of just like, well, let's just wait and see or blah, 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 blah. And so when you can track that in an application, that's very important. So that'll be out there in the next couple of weeks. And then the last thing that we'll add over the spring is for the people the psychos. This is for the psychos. And I say that with love because I am a psycho. We will allow users to order their own back catalog imagery from a time and place where we couldn't order all of it, but it's available. So they can go back and be like, oh, I really want this March 1st imagery where all the leaves are off the trees from this area in Pennsylvania where I can never get imagery like that. They'll be able to order that and host it on their own map. But then also if they go get a crop drone, they can ingest and display their own imagery on that map. And, or if they find other image repositories where they have to screenshot imagery and actually paste it in there, that will be available as well. We call the capability Skywatch. But then the last thing they'll be able to do with that is if they run an outfitter or like me, they're a psycho, they can actually task a satellite to go out and grasp the imagery for them. So they can be like, look, the best time of the year, before the buds and when everything's truly dead, it's like February 23rd, right? So I want imagery on February 23rd. So I'm going to task a satellite to fly over this area. Now, it's not going to be as high resolution as what we get with airplanes. Like intrinsically, it just can't be because it's not an airplane. It's a satellite that's, on a geosynchronous orbit at 15,000 miles above the Earth's surface. But what it will be is imagery where you will see every cut and every trail because it's sun synchronous. You'll see everything that's going on in the ground. It just won't be as high resolution where you can measure the height of the tree. And the deer just ran by.
Yeah,
you guys
did you
see
hear that? Yeah.
No, I
Is that what
saw
that
it.
was?
Oh, you saw it?
No, I saw it. Just went like that.
What? Where?
From there to there.
Well,
Like I saw its tail right over there.
I heard something running. I didn't know
No,
what
it
it
just
was.
went like that.
there's
I swear to you.
between us and the house.
Well, no, it came up like this and then went that way. Like as I was talking. You heard it, right?
Yeah, I heard it.
Yeah, it went just like that. It came up this way and went that way.
It's on to us.
No, it's bucks chasing.
Guy needs to get out of here.
And the application
Trust me.
has been absolutely telling us that.
I didn't say this earlier, but there was a rabbit that ran right behind you guys about an hour ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was cool.
Anyway, that's what we're adding in the next few weeks. For sure, it'll all be done by the next season. And we have more stuff we're adding for next season. And then we're having a Spartan Forge retreat this summer where we're going to get all of you pro staffs together and make sure that we're doing this all right. Because I think the thing that's different about this app from every other app out on the market is, and I can tell you this because I've dealt with the other apps and I've been in the rooms with them when they're planning things. Most of them plan with money at the top of the value hierarchy, which I understand when you're a large business, money's got to be at the top. The top of our value hierarchy right now is what do the hunters want on our pro staff? Mm-hmm. That's the top, because between myself, Jimmy, and Vaughn, who are the other founders of this company, they're two. When I say this, I've met some of the smartest people in the world. They're two of them, and I mean I've dealt with guys.
I mean, Jimmy's a new man though. He's changed.
He is a new man. He's
I don't even know that
stashed
guy
out.
anymore.
We got Jimmy. He came out for the veterans hunt, and we got him in a rut stash, and he hasn't gone back.
He got on one podcast. The guy changed forever.
He is a different man.
Demeanor's gone.
Yeah, I mean, ton of ego, but it was probably good for him. He needed a little ego, but truly some of the smartest people I've ever met in my life. And like I said, I've dealt with people at MIT, Lincoln Labs, DARPA, like the mad scientists of the free world, and they're right up there with them. So between the three of us, when you guys come up with a crazy zany idea,
Yeah.
our challenge is to make it work.
That's the difference, is like most other companies are relying on outsourced coders.
And money.
And when you come up with an
it gets
idea, it's
coded
like,
in
okay,
India.
well, give me 6 months to go through the board, and then
Yeah.
I'll send it out to my outsourced coders. I can call you on the phone and be like, hey,
Yeah, I mean,
this is
you
what we
guys
should
did
do.
that.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys came up with like, what was it? I was about to go to Scotland for vacation after I retired from the military. And you're like, hey, we should come up with a way to present to people what the predictions mean.
Yeah, the GPS data. What does it look like on a map?
What's that look like on a map? And I was literally in the hotel the night before I flew out to Scotland, and we mapped it all out. And we had it coded and built and displayed within 4 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what this company is going to do. We're going to respond to the hunter. And anybody, I challenge you, go and message any one of these other companies and tell them that you want something. And then go and talk to somebody who's messaged me. Right now, I just did the numbers the other day. I'm answering about 80% of our social media interactions. I can't do all of them, but I'm trying my damnedest. Like every time I sit on a toilet or I'm going to sleep or I'm taking my pre-workout before I go to the gym, I am interacting with people who use the application.
Great workspace. And the pre-workout helps you put you in that workspace.
Yeah, it absolutely does. But I'm dealing with these people. I'm like, hey, this would be this would be great, this would be great, this would be great. I build a ticket, I screenshot when they said this to me, and I follow up with them. And I'm like, hey, dude, when you said it would be great to do this, I built that. Here it is. I thank you. Mm-hmm. And here's like 50% off. Or here's 100% off for the year. Like in some cases, I give these guys when they give me good ideas. So this is, the cliche is by the people, for the people. That's what this application is, by the hunters, and it's for the hunters. And I'm taking all of my cues from hunters.
Which is a huge reason of why we were excited to work with you and kind of why we are continuing to be excited to work with you is like it's a very cool thing to be a part of, and it's just very different from all these industry things that are kind of out there.
And we're going to keep it tactical.
Yeah, for sure.
It's going to stay at this level where I as the CEO am interacting, and I don't even like saying CEO, I as the founder am interacting with the people that have critiques of my application, and I'm telling them, like, dudes will call me or will say something in Instagram where they have some good input, and I'll video call them. I'll be like, that shit's great. I'm going to give you a year. I give them the year for free, and then I'll implement what they said, and then I'll show them. Yeah. That's happened at least 4 times.
Boys.
Very good.
It's 1 a.m.
It is?
Is it really?
Yes.
Oh, my God.
Probably been 5 hours. And I will refer to how I started this podcast. Thank you for tuning into the Seek One podcast, the podcast that will most likely get us canceled. We will catch you next time.
Oh, good. Very good.